our capital markets. Well done. I want to demystify the subject of market infrastructure, the subject of what a CSD is for others. Who are others? The media, policymakers, market intermediaries, and so on. Because yours is a very technical function. And yes, it has fundamental important impact. But if you ask most people, why is a CSD important? Most people who actually have the power to do the things that will make a CSD relevant and important, either in our markets or they don't know. So today, your mission has never been more critical. Geopolitical realignments are reshaping global trade routes. Digital disruption is transforming the rules of settlement and custody. And capital is increasingly mobile and is seeking out the most robust and innovative platforms where it can work. So in this context, countries and businesses across Africa and the Middle East face both unprecedented challenges and extraordinary opportunity.
As a matter of fact, we finally made it, and we are here today in Lagos, and we met almost on the first day to our main objectives. We've seen lots of collaborations among the members, but let's not forget that we are Lagos in Nigeria. There are lots of potential interests. We've seen and learned from NGX, which is a stock exchange, national stock exchange, and also we learned from CSCS about the latest technologies, about the latest development have been made. So most of the members already entered into agreements, collaboration, exchange of knowledge, and today we think we will go back again to our countries and learn from this event, which is very important, and also the latest developments and achievements have been done in Nigeria, particularly on policymakers, regulations, marketplace, and as well as the clearinghouse, which is CSCS. Last but not least, we have also seen how the broker also interact in the market yesterday and today. We have also met few market participants. So yes, we'll go back and we learn a lot from what's happening in this area, particularly in Nigeria. So let's not forget that the more than 40 members among Africa and Middle East with a market, a huge number of market cap. So we've discussed internally on the cross-border transaction we have done among more than 10 members. We came up with a platform that is accessible by any members who enter to this. So today, let's say an investor in Nigeria who has a market setup with one of the local brokers, if they are interested in trading in any market across the African Middle East Association, they don't have to have a local access. So they can use the local broker to access any market, trade, settle, and that's it. So this was the main objective, and this was one of the dreams that we have ever thought of. And today it's up and running, and we are growing. As we started with 2 markets, today we are 10, so we are announcing as we go.
I think one of the biggest challenges is around user education. Investing places a lot of responsibility on the part of investor to know what they are doing. Whether you have financial advisors or not, you still at an individual level need to understand what you're doing. So I think there's a lot of work that we can do around education. I also think there's a lot we can do around providing more investment opportunities to people that need them. There is a lot of asset classes and instruments that exist in the world today, and there's often a mismatch both in terms of accessibility and the education on how to use that to people that it can maybe benefit the most. Some of the work that we're doing in Bamboo is trying to bridge that gap. We invest a lot in education, providing tools, resources on demand, in person, trying to show people and teach them the fundamentals of investing responsibly, the fundamentals of making smart financial decisions for yourself, and also by providing our app that's essentially free and easy to use, trying to create as many asset classes as possible for people across markets. So today we are in Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria, giving opportunities to, about 1 million people on the platform today.
Many challenges, but if I would identify a few, we talk about old equipment, sometimes dated 15 to 20 years old, okay? We also have the problem of AI adoption. A lot of financial institutions struggle to adopt AI, and usually it's the result of poor API and data quality. We also have the issues of costly regulatory complexities, and this is usually makes the struggle for cross-border settlement to happen. And he also struggles innovation. So these are the few that we can identify in terms of challenges faced by the financial institution in Africa.
The capital market has been an engine for economic growth and prosperity for a lot of countries because it provides you a platform to crowdfund, to raise capital at a level that is unmatched. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to raise 1 billion naira and you're having to go to individuals to fundraise, that's a lot more tedious work than if you go to a platform and be able to raise money from people who have not even met you before, but they are putting money based on what. And the government is doing a lot in that regard. Mr. President, one of the Mr. President's key interventions in this that is crucial to this space is the laying of 96,000 of broadband infrastructure across the country. What that means is that you can be in the middle of anywhere in Nigeria and be able to access internet because a company now can now ride on the trunk infrastructure that have been invested in building a mast or extending the network to far off places so people can now connect no matter where they are. I mean, look at what mobile phone did initially in bringing people who were in the hinterland and the villages and being able to connect them.
So this talent management conference is a strategic gathering of CEOs, HR professionals, policymakers, and wellness advocates who are committed in different ways to building a resilient, productive people, having a primary focus on ensuring the well-being of our people.
Business Day Media held its Talent Management Conference on the 8th of April 2025. The conference brought together a spectacular corp of CEOs, top HR professionals, government policymakers, and wellness advocates committed to building resilient people-first organizations in Nigeria. The publisher of Business Day, Mr. Frank Ibogun, delivered a welcome address speaking to the theme of the occasion.
With 74% of Nigerian employees reportedly disengaged at work and productivity losses exceeding billions of dollars annually, the urgency to rethink talent management in our organizations has never been greater. This conference serves as a vital platform to explore how aligning employee well-being with organizational goals can unlock untapped profitability and, of course, long-term competitiveness. From practical wellness initiatives to engagement-driven leadership models, this event offers actionable insights to Nigerian businesses ready to future-proof their organization's workforce.
As the event proceeded, the keynote address was given by Professor Akin Abayomi, Honorable Commissioner of the Lagos State Ministry of Health, who made emphasis on employee well-being, health, among all the critical areas of well-being.
Your health as an employee, we have to make sure that you are a healthy person and that you're in a fit state to make the contribution for which you've been engaged to do. But at the same time, we don't want the workspace to contribute negatively to your health and well-being. And so the workspace is a complex environment from the moment you leave your home till the moment you get to your office, if you are doing a physical job, or if you are in a virtual space, that connectivity is important.
Good morning and welcome to the Bdtv Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa. It's a pleasure to have you start your morning with us. Let's see what's making the headlines today. World Bank calls for end to Nigeria's subsidy. DMO opens 300 billion naira sukuk with 19.75% yield. Courts to hear Akpabio's contempt claims against Natasha for May 13. United Kingdom slashes graduate visa from 2 years to 18 months. Flying Eagles defeat Senegal to seal Under-20 World Cup qualification. Well, let's begin the news in Nigeria, where the World Bank has described Nigeria's electricity subsidy as wasteful and regressive, warning that the subsidy continues to undermine hard-won economic gains from ongoing reforms. Data from Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) shows that the country spent approximately 200 billion naira on subsidies monthly. The bank called on the Nigerian government to address the subsidy as it did with the petrol, urging them to sustain the ongoing reforms, including the removal of foreign exchange controls. According to the World Bank, there is also a need to undertake more reforms to further improve the macroeconomic and fiscal environment critical for economic stability. Moving on, the Debt Management Office has opened the 2025 FGN Sukuk 300 billion naira offer for subscription. This 300 billion naira 7-year Ijara Sukuk, maturing in May 2032, comes with an interest rate of 19.75% per annum, payable twice a year. With subscription kicking off May 12th and closing on May 20th, investors can buy a minimum subscription of 10,000 naira and in multiples of 1,000 naira thereafter at 1,000 naira per unit. The principal investment will be repaid in a single bullet payment upon the Sukuk's maturity in May 2032. The DMO revealed that the funds regenerated from this offer are earmarked specifically for the construction and rehabilitation of crucial road projects and bridges spanning all 6 geopolitical zones within Nigeria, directly linking investment to tangible national development. Still on, the Federal High Court in Abuja on Monday has adjourned till today, Tuesday, May 13, for the definite hearing of the contempt claims made against the suspended senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, by Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Justice Binta Nyako fixed the date following a submission by the second and third defendants, who informed the court that they had filed an application drawing attention to the plaintiff's alleged contempt. The legal dispute between Akpabio and Akpoti-Uduaghan originated from a disagreement over seating arrangements during plenary on February 20, with the suspended senator approaching the Federal High Court to seek an order restraining the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions from investigating her. Now, to end the local news, the Lagos State government has announced a significant boost in its internally generated revenue, recording approximately 1.3 trillion naira in 2024. According to reports, this is a 45% increase from the 895 billion naira collected in 2023. Commissioner for Finance Agbayomi Oluyomi revealed this on Monday during a ministerial press briefing held as part of activities marking the second anniversary of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's second term in office. Oluyomi says that the ministry regenerated over 14 billion naira from land use charge, representing a 37% year-on-year increase in property tax collections. And on the foreign scene, the United Kingdom government has cut the graduate route visa from 2 years to 18 months, describing it as systemic abuse and mission drift in international education, asylum, and family immigration. The announcement, which is part of a broader immigration for white paper released Monday, is paired with tougher compliance rules for universities, a legal reset on asylum, and deportation decisions with stricter enforcement powers to curb visa fraud. The report also revealed that applicants whose home country conditions have not materially changed or who fail to claim upon arrival may now be automatically refused under the new admissibility rules. Also, the United States President Donald Trump has revealed that the United States has achieved a total reset in relations with China after both countries agreed to reduce tariffs on each other's goods for 90 days. Trump says that he expects to meet soon with Chinese President Xi Jinping, insisting that tariffs on the country will not reach the same height as before. The United States markets have surged after the deal between Washington and Beijing, a major de-escalation in their trade war. Reports show that markets in the United States are now trading at similar levels to the beginning of the year, marking a significant recovery since Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs in April. And now to sport, Nigeria's Flying Eagles have secured a place at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup after edging out defending champion Senegal in a tense quarter-final clash at the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt on Monday. The goalless encounter at the Suez Canal Authority Stadium in España was ultimately decided with a penalty shootout, with Nigeria prevailing over a hard-fought battle. The victory sends the Flying Eagles into the semi-finals, where they will face the winner of the other quarter-final between South Africa and DR Congo, also taking place in Ismaila. NFF President Alhaji Ibrahim Musa Gusau expressed his delight at the qualification, calling it a crucial milestone. To end the news, Xabi Alonso will become the new Real Madrid head coach ahead of the Club World Cup. And according to reports, the Spaniard will replace Carlo Ancelotti, who is to take charge of the Brazil national team from May 26 after finishing the season at Real Madrid. Alonso announced his Bayer Leverkusen exit on Friday after a successful 2.5 years at the German club, having won a league and cup double last season and falling just short of a remarkable unbeaten treble with defeat to Atlanta in the Europa League final. The 43-year-old won nearly everything as a player at Real Madrid, aiming to win more silverware as a manager at the Bernabeu. Well, that does it this morning on the Bdtv Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Up next is the newspaper review. Do stay with us.
So this talent management conference is a strategic gathering of CEOs, HR professionals, policymakers, and wellness advocates who are committed.
Hello and welcome to the Business Day exclusive. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and today we are all about millionaire moves. I've got joining me today a young man who is passionate about helping young people, especially those in the African American community, create their own wealth journey. His name is Cedric Nash, and he is called Your Millionaire Mentor. He's a serial entrepreneur and investor who educates, inspires, and motivates wealth building in the African American community. He's also the founder of the Black Wealth Summit 501 organization and the author of the newly released books, Why Should White Guys Have All the Wealth? And also is also the author of How You Can Become a Millionaire Starting from the Bottom and the Millionaire Money Moves Supplemental Investment Guide. He also is the founder and the owner and president and CEO of Oakland Consulting. Oakland provides a range of enterprise IT services that helps organizations realize their business and technology goals. He is also a firm believer and the living example that anyone, regardless of age, race, income, or starting point, can build wealth if they have a burning desire, unshakable faith, grit, and a willingness to make the necessary sacrifices. Well, enough of the introduction. Let's get into the business of today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nash.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here with you today.
Awesome. Let me start by asking you why you started this journey of getting more people empowered to create wealth. Tell us about this journey.
Well, this journey started a long time ago, just coming out of college. I read a lot of books on personal finance, inspired by my mentors. I had 4 millionaire mentors who inspired me and shaped my mindset to want to build wealth. So when I came out of college, I really wanted to create a blueprint for building wealth starting with a paycheck. And so I was able to achieve that. And as a way of paying forward what my 4 million mentors had poured into me, I wanted to spread the love to my community because I believe that, like I said, anybody can build wealth as long as you have that burning desire.
Right. And tell us about what this millionaire mindset is. I mean, there are many people who want to be millionaires. There are people who already are millionaires. They probably have a mindset that we don't know. And then what do aspiring millionaires also, what's this millionaire mindset that they need to know about?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people think that a millionaire mindset is really about, lavish living and lavish spending. And it's quite the opposite. The millionaire mindset is really around frugality. It's really around using your money like a tool to make more money as opposed to using it like a toy. And so it sounds very simple, but it's very difficult to implement. It's because we are influenced by our friends, we're influenced by social media, we're influenced by millionaires and billionaires who are spending millions of dollars on marketing to influence us to use our money to make them richer. And so it's harder and harder for people to keep their own money in their own pockets and building up their own group of assets that provide lifelong income and wealth for them and their family. So, like I said, it's a lot of people talk often about this millionaire mindset. I think they get it wrong. It's really about frugality. It's really around treating your money like a precious resource. And so often in our community, we treat it we have a saying, to fake it until we make it. We treat it more like to make us look more wealthy, and that never is a recipe for success.
And tell us about, looking at your own journey, what was the mindset shift rather that you had to make to become a millionaire?
What was interesting is that because my millionaire mentors had poured into me since I was in 11th grade, when I came out of college, I already had that mindset. So when I took my first job out of college as a software engineer, making $36,400 a year in the United States, which was a decent salary at that time for a 25-year-old, I lived on a very, very tight budget, a very strict budget. I made sure I was constantly saving. I bought my first piece of real estate right out of college. I went from my college apartment right into owning my own condominium. And so I was very frugal. I was saving my money. I was only spending on things that were necessary. So my mindset was already there. What's really interesting is that at that age, I never knew how it would turn out. I just believed that that was the right process. And it worked because that mindset that cemented in me continued even when I started making significantly more money. And so as I made significantly more money, I always lived below my means. I always made sure that I invested in assets. And over time, those assets have grown and they continue to produce income. And that's really what we have to do. The sad reality is people are in certain financial situations that make it very difficult for them to live as frugal as they need to be. But that really is the answer.
Right. And, you talked about your journey and you rightly mentioned that you started out really early and you went on to even purchase your first real estate, your property, real estate. So what's one common mistake investors make at the early stage that you would like them to correct today?
Thank you. I love that you asked that question because I have another book that I've written but I haven't released, and it's targeted to college grads. And it talks about the journey that I took, and it talks about some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the things that I would have done differently. And so one of those things are that when I first came out of college, I wanted to I got married shortly out of college. I bought a condominium and I wanted to kind of, live this life. I bought a condominium. I bought a BMW, was buying fancy clothes, Hugo Boss suits, because I was trying to project this image. There was still work on my mindset that needed to be done. But for the most part, I was in good shape. The one thing I would have done differently, though, is I probably would have purchased a duplex. I would have purchased a property that had 2 or 3 units. And me and my young wife at the time with no kids could have lived in one unit and rented out the others and got to the point where we were living rent-free so I could even save more money. So, and then I would have held on to that duplex because, a duplex in the area where I was living today would be worth over $2 million. And I could have gotten it much cheaper. The other interesting thing about that duplex is in the United States, the way financing works, the same financial requirements are needed for a single family that are needed for a duplex, threeplex, even a fourplex. So I still could have gotten in there with very little money as a down payment and had somebody else pay the mortgage and some. So that's the mindset that I'm talking about. It's about how do I maximize the use of my money for my eventual long-term success. And that's the mindset that millionaires have. They don't look for short-term rewards. They look for long-term success.
Right, and let's talk about wealth building and what you think is important and what is not. Do you think age, do you think race, do you think education, do you think all of these things are important factors when it comes to wealth building?
The reality is it's not that important. It's really the mindset. And the reason why I say that is that the education can help in terms of your ability to earn more money. I mean, it does take money to make more money. So the education will help you on what I call the offense, on getting more income so that you can do better things with it. But there's been countless of people, in our history, as well as people even, our parents and grandparents who made modest amounts of money, but they saved a lot and they built significant wealth. And I always talk about my grandmother who made only $200 a month, which is not much money in the United States, but she went on to owning her own home. She saved some money for retirement. She passed money on to her grandkids, of which I received some, and then I basically invested that money. At the same time, I own her house in New York, in the Bronx, and that house is worth over $700,000, and I have it rented out. So that's what generational wealth is really about. It's about efficiently transferring wealth from one generation to another. And I say efficiently by minimizing tax liabilities, minimizing the amount of money you spend with lawyers trying to transfer over the assets. So I think it's not so much about how much you make. It's really more about the mindset. Because if you have the right mindset, you can always find ways to make more money by taking on side hustles and eventually get your investments to generate the income that you want and desire.
Right, and I understand that you are mostly focused on, making sure that the African American community builds wealth. What do you think are some of the financial barriers that we are facing in the African American community?
The biggest barrier, and it sounds like I said, I know I sound like a broken record because I go back and forth to this mindset concept. It really is so important. But the biggest barrier to us as a community is that most African Americans, pretty much all of us, our understanding and our knowledge around wealth it's rooted in financial trauma, right? Starting all the way from slavery. And if you're in the United States, you go from slavery, you go to sharecropping, which my grandfather was a sharecropper. My father was a son of a sharecropper. You go from being promised 40 acres and a mule that never happens, gets taken back. You go to, there's a whole bunch of things, redlining, the Jim Crow laws, and even the stuff that we're dealing with today that's setting us back so far in the United States. So what happens is it's our response to that financial trauma that has shaped our mindset in the way that it is. And it's made us desperate. So then we invest in things that we expect are going to give us super fast returns, like cryptocurrency and things like that, right? We basically fall for all of these tricks that don't really get us there because our mindset says we're behind. We need to speed it up. So we've got to basically take chances. And the realities about wealth is that it's a slow process. It's about slow, consistent investing in quality assets that appreciate and generate over time. It also has us distrustful of our fellow brothers. So then we have a difficult time pulling our money together to invest together. All of these are mindset concepts. The other piece is that it has us overcompensating. So basically, I talk about fake it till we make it. We spend money to convince people that are not wealthy that we're wealthy, right? That's overcompensating as opposed to using that capital to literally make us wealthy. All of these are mindset things that hold us back. And so in order to basically build wealth and to shift that mindset, it really takes the right village, right? It starts with having the right environment of people that are serious about building wealth and willing to put the work in. And that's why I created this Black Wealth Growth Challenge, where I mentor people for an entire year. And in that process, there's a huge mindset that's happened. They get coaching on investing. They learn from other millionaire investors, and they're inspired. And they're inspired to stay the course. And they're in a course with people of like-minded. So that's really, really what's needed. And it's a slow process, and it takes time, but it's very, very doable.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. You know, we are in Africa, so oftentimes people talk about poverty levels being high. It's hard for many people to even think of wealth creation when they have yet to put food on their tables. All of these things are things that people are not quite concerned about, you know, building wealth when they are yet to, you know, have a 3-square meal. What do you think is the way out of this? Do you think that it's still possible for people to build wealth with high levels of poverty?
Yes, there is. And like I said, it's been done, you know, between generations. There's a book I read called, it's called Black Fortunes, and it talks about the six African Americans or Africans that escaped slavery to become millionaires. And they started way before the levels of poverty in Africa today. These are people who started as slaves, who started just out of slavery, who were able to pull some money together and invest in the same things: real estate, stocks and bonds, private equity, gold, the whole 9 yards, and become millionaires. So the whole point is like, no matter where you're starting from, it's possible. It just means that the journey is going to be slower and it's going to be harder. And that just means that you have to have that much more resolve. You got to find so many ways to make, you know, income. And what's interesting about Africa, which I love, I call it a new frontier, because there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that are happening. One of the things that I see, and I might be wrong on this, but one of the things I don't see that Africa is taking advantage of to the full extent, and that's the technology revolution that's happening.
Right.
You know, African, you know, businesses, there's so much technology that can be brought to those businesses that could significantly increase efficiencies and create opportunities for young people that have embraced these new technologies. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about cybersecurity. Talking about, you know, a lot of the technology centered around mobile technology and electric vehicles and the whole 9 yards. It's a huge opportunity. And I believe also that there's ways through research and hard work to identify ways to get capital for those businesses. And that's really, really the key. In fact, I really can't talk about it now, but I'm working on something that does such that to help bring capital to African American people to kind of, you know, spark their entrepreneurial dreams and goals.
Truly look forward to that. But, you know, when I was reading through your bio, I did see that you spoke about spending what your money makes. And I was really curious to know what that means. How does one set up their finances so as to be able to spend what their money makes? I
love that. That's really, really the key. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people take their money and they spend their money, and they're not using it like a tool. When you use your money like a tool, that means that you invest in things that generate more income. An example of things that generate more income is you can invest in multifamily properties. I know in Africa, people pay their rent for the entire year.
Right.
So you can find properties that you can buy and fix up and rent those properties out. So you're not spending the money that it takes to buy the properties. You're spending the rent, the proceeds of the rent. So you're spending what your money is making. The other example is, I know in Africa, you can now invest in the U.S. stock market. There are things called dividend aristocrats. These are dividend stocks that have been producing a dividend. And a dividend is when a company makes a profit, they decide to share some of those profits with shareholders in the form of quarterly dividends. Well, some companies pay 5 or 6% dividends to their investors. So by buying a whole bunch of dividend stock, now you can invest, you can spend the dividends while keeping the base investment continuing to grow. That's the concept of what I call making millionaire money moves. It's about using your capital to invest in assets that appreciate in value, at the same time generate income. A business is another kind of thing. It's where you put your money in to start a business, and the money that your business generates, you can spend a portion of that. But if you don't have any capital to invest in these assets, you'll never get that system going. You'll never get that system moving.
Right. And some of us are not even creating budgets. Some of us don't even know how to stay on a budget. Can you give us some tips on implementing? I understand that you have something called, is it the M Power Budget? Because I did see that. So do you want to give us tips on implementing using this budget?
Yeah, it's called the Millionaire Money Moves Power Budget. And I call it a power budget because it really challenges you to at least save and invest at least 27% of your income. And a lot of people can't initially do that. And so the name of the game is, if you can't do that, then you've got to make more income, because as you make more income, it changes the distribution of that formula until you can get to 27%. And the reason why I say that is because you need to invest a significant portion of your income in order to build sustainable wealth. And I have templates that kind of allow people to put their current budget in, categorize their expenditures, and it will create a graph to show them how their current budget stacks against the Millionaire Money Moves Power Budget. But my mother would always say, my mother died when I was 19. I'll never forget her saying this, that if you can't manage a little bit of money, you won't be able to manage a lot of money. And that's so true. And you'll find some people who come into big money fast, a lot of times like American athletes or international athletes, and they spend it real fast. And it's because they never developed the right mindset around that money, and they never create a budget. So no matter how much money you make, I mean, I make a decent amount of money, and I still live off of a budget. It's the same budget structure I created when I came out of college when I was 25 years old. You have to manage and account for your dollars so that you can put them to work to benefit yourself. One of the keys, or one of the challenges, especially in this credit kind of environment in the United States, is that, and Africa doesn't have this problem for the most part, is because the credit cards give people this false sense of more money than they have. And it makes it almost impossible for them to stay on budget. Plus, like I said, marketers are constantly telling you you need this, you got to buy this thing, or this is going to make you look more wealthy or more stronger or whatever. And it causes people to spend money on things that they really don't need. So the key to staying on budget, and I talk about this as well, as when you look at the power budget, I have you create several accounts where you put money into those accounts according to the distribution of your budget. And then when that money is gone in that bucket, it's almost like putting different money in different buckets. And when that money is gone in that bucket, then you just have to stay at home and cut your spending until you get more money put into the bucket. So, that's one way. It's going to segment your money into what is mandatory for you to pay in terms of what is discretionary, things that are optional, which is another bucket for what you need to save and invest, right? Another bucket for how you reward yourself when you achieve your goals, right? And also another bucket for giving back, because that's an important paradigm in wealth building. So that's, in essence, I know I'm going on and on, but that's in essence the structure of our budgeting. And that's key to building wealth. It's a slow process, but you've got to manage your dollars very, very carefully and track them if you're going to get there.
Right. And, you've been speaking on saving and investing more, and people are curious to know what are ways to strategically invest. What will be your tips on earning more? Because there are people who, probably want to invest, but then they just have just a little chunk, and they're wondering, what am I even going to invest?
I love
like
that.
In Nigeria. So they're thinking, how do Hello and welcome back to the Bdtv Breakfast Show. Now it's time for us to see what we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. We start off this morning with the Business Day newspaper. But I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this alongside Mohammed Akonji, our very own in-house analyst. Welcome to the show, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for having me. Good morning. And I hope you had a good night too.
Yeah, it was okay. I'm just in between campaigns.
Campaigns.
Yeah, just I'm in my political era right now.
Don't let Heineck hear that from you, because that's beginning of campaign. There is always like a commencement period, so it is illegal. Okay, I don't know. Okay, are you talking about local government campaigns or which other campaigns?
I'm talking
anyway?
about my personal.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm vying for a position.
Oh, that is
in
great.
An alumni network.
Alumni network. Oh, yes. That's true. So sorry. Yeah. I thought you were just a tongue in cheek. That is true. I think I saw it on your status.
So yes, I'm doing that.
Oh, that is really, really great.
Quite interesting. Do you have any tips for me?
I don't even know what you are campaigning for in the first place. Maybe we'll talk about that behind the scenes. I think I know I saw something on your status, you know, but I thought maybe it was just like a joke initially, but I think you're really serious about it now. I can see.
It's a very serious situation.
Oh yes. So, well, when you mentioned campaign, I was alluding to maybe the fallout of the primary election, the APC primary elections, and if it is the presidential election, of course, INEC will just be able to declare the official period for campaign to begin for in that political political level.
But this period has actually been a bit of an eye opener for me,
you. At least veering into that how it operates.
But I mean, that's even great. In this little community, I'm seeing all of the work that we've had to do.
Oh my God!
When back then I used to laugh and say, they don't sleep, they're everywhere.
They're just going everywhere. Like, oh my God!
This is just about 60 of us or something, but I've not really slept. I've been speaking
seriously,
to
everyone and there,
telling them about my experience. So I have a whole new respect now for politicians and everything that they do. Honestly, whatever it is they do, I really don't blame them when they now get to the position and when it's like when people say that they are trying to get money from themselves. Please, take me, don't take me out of context.
Okay.
I feel that when some of them get there, all this hard work that I did. So when people are just having deep takes or hot takes
on issues,
they don't know what it is to be on that seat.
But I think maybe I'm just really surprised that you were just coming to that epiphany. Coming to the epiphany because as politicians, go and see them. Yes. I don't have a full grasp of what you're dealing with at the moment, but I know when politicians during campaigns, electoral canvassing, moving from place to place and trying to be able to tell people, you see them as people who know their onion, and they understand the intensity of what is at stake. And that is why when we were asking them during campaign periods, during debates, to say, oh, do you know the level of rot, for example, in the system? And you will see them, they will be able to come out and say, yes, I'm not promising you Eldorado, I know what is at stake. And that is why my first 100 days, I'm going to be able to divide my deliverables in tranches to ensure that if I don't deliver this by this period, because also, yes, they understand the gravity of what is at stake. So sometimes that's why a lot of people felt like it is a breach of that promise to now say, oh, it's only when I get there I understand the gravity of what is here. Because
so that's why they'll say, oh, the first day, so they give a timeline.
A timeline to say 100 days I should be able to achieve this.
But sometimes they don't get to do it like this.
That's what I'm saying. That's what when I say, oh, my first 100 days I'm going to be able to ensure I head words in this. I'm not even talking about Nigeria within Nigerian context. I'm talking about the gravity of what is involved. 95% of them are very much aware. They can get overwhelmed when they get there, I agree. But the way you are making it sound like, okay, oh, maybe, yeah, when the politicians actually get there, maybe they've not been able to have, a full helicopter view of what happens. And it's only when they get there and say, so this is the magnitude of what I'm going to face. You understand now?
That's not the case.
That's not the case. That's what I'm trying to say. So because as much as possible, that's why there is a tendency for you to be able to have like your, your manifestos. You have your to-do points to ensure this is the level of what, this is the level of expectations. These are actually the situations that you need to be able to encounter.
But I want to ask a quick question. Okay. In fact, this is like a class in electoral.
Well, okay, I'm just trying to be able
to, why is it that, for instance, the latest now being President Trump, they get there and say, I'm going to do this in my first 100 days. I think he gave a promise.
Yes, for 3 of them. The Russia-Ukraine war was actually the height of it. But the other things he did, he has not been able. The other thing he said about tariff on China, I think he did it. That's what he campaigned on. He rode on that crest to say, oh, other countries are taking advantage of, in his word, I'm quoting him now, countries are taking advantage of America's magnanimity. and then he will need to be able to slap tariff on them. And we've seen how that has jolted the world economy. So we did that. The other thing he promised that I think he failed to achieve was the Russia and Ukraine war. I mean, his 100 days was just was last 2 weeks. He said that he's going to end the war within the first 100 days in the office, but unfortunately he has not been able to do that. Even though by Thursday, there's expected to be the very first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in Turkey. He has failed to be able to achieve that. Then the other thing that I actually promised to be able to achieve as well, because if you read out the scorecard, I would have loved it. Maybe I'll show you behind the scene or we have a break. He was actually be able to look at the scorecard, his promises while he was campaigning, and his scorecard in the other days in office, and he was actually given like about 75%. You understand now? Not everything has been achieved, no doubt. But when you look at the items that he put out in the manifestos and how he has been able to tick some of those bucket lists, some of those bucket lists to say, has this been done in terms of immigration, for example? Immigration, that number has actually gone down. Of course, you know, people see him as immigration Caesar. And a lot of countries run away from, this man is a crazy man, he can do anything. Unlike the type of numbers, the kind of numbers that you tend to be able to see American borders during Biden's time, it has reduced very massively these days. Then the level of inflation as well, he has been able to, you know, take a hold of inflation in the US, especially as a result of actually producing and pumping more oil into the system. So what I'm saying there is, yes, he's able to achieve some, but there are a lot of other things that he probably is going to be able to do in 100 days that he has not been able to do. And one of the very first things that he said he's going to do, and I love that he did, was the fact that American traditions, the very first trip of American president is that you go to US, UK, go to Canada or go to Mexico.
I don't want us to.
And yesterday he has gone to Saudi Arabia. He's just in Saudi Arabia now. I'm just saying yes. So he'll be able to make up to do that. That okay, the tradition in the US is to say your very first trip as an American president is to go to either of these countries. But in his own case,
that's fine. Let's talk about what we have on the front page of the newspaper. Yes. But very quickly, what makes for a successful politician?
Yes. So what I'm saying is, I think it's walking your talk.
Okay.
That is very important. How do you be able to make good your promises? Politicians have been, you know, they've actually been harangued and demonized. Let me just put it that way. Sorry for people to use the word; it's not too harsh. Have been demonized globally because of that, you know, that wedge between what they say, and what they do.
Right.
You understand now? And I think there's a need to be able to match that, so that people will be able to say, oh, his word is his bond, our word is our bond. Whatever he says, whatever she says, is what will be able to. And I think it is what create that wedge. So everybody with the politicians, they've come again to be able to bamboozle us to their promises, and they get there, they tend to be able to throw, I mean, they trust people to like throw us behind them and then face whatever will actually be able to improve their pocket or able to improve their whole lot. So I think that is one important thing. You know, that personality, to make good your promises, to make good your talk, and then empathy. You understand? Very important. Empathy.
Really?
Yes, because of course, don't forget, you are the fate of thousands, millions, the case may be, hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are in your hands. And so it's that empathy towards feeling what is actually happening to them at the moment will go a long way to tend to be able to put a leader in the right path. Perhaps. But I'm sure people will be able to talk about it.
Yeah, surely we'll talk about it
definitely
very much later. But
it's really good.
Thank you for your input. But let's see what we have on the front pages of the newspaper this morning. Let's start off with the Business Day newspaper. The big story on the Business Day paper says investment in exports to power Nigeria's five-fold growth. And this is from the World Bank. Federal government moves to overhaul discourse in power sector revamp. Those are the two big stories on the front page of the Business Day paper. So let's take a quick
look at them. Okay. So I don't know. Let me start with the top story because I'm sure it's cut across all the papers today. Yesterday, the World Bank released their Nigeria Development Update, which is their quarterly report, exactly, showing the growth trajectory of the nation. And in fact, a lot of revelations, a lot of facts were actually revealed there. One of them was actually what blazoned our headline this morning to say that at the current rate, we need to be able to grow 5 times what we are going to be able to achieve the $1 trillion economic status that we wanted to be able to achieve by 2030. Don't forget that is actually the campaign mantra of this administration, to ensure that by 2030, this economy that is hovering around 230 to about between 250 and 350 $1 million economy, you should be able to hit that status. So the lead economists of World Bank released and then challenged some of the existing policies that we have in place, you know, to say yes, they admit the fact that they are working in their own sense, but that more needed to be done. Of course, the exchange rate, the first subsidy removal was actually considered as a very good step in the right direction, part of the government. More is there to be done to be able to attract foreign direct investment to achieve that $1 trillion status as well. But one of the other important things that they actually advised yesterday was the removal of the electricity subsidy, especially for those from the band B to the band E. You know, don't forget that the subsidy has been removed for those in band A. So they're looking at an holistic removal of that subsidy. I'm sure a lot of watchers, analysts, and social affair commentators have actually been able to counter them in that regard. But there are other questions as well, you know, about advising the government in terms of the cost of governance, you know, foreign trips, spending on what's it called, the cost of governance generally needed to be checked as well. And if you look at the report, as you say, is a report yesterday, and the idea there, the title of the report was Building the Momentum for Inclusive Growth. How do we ensure the momentum that we have, just like I said, how is it sustained? And then to ensure that the growth that we have is inclusive, is not just centered across some segment or within some segment, and is not trickling down across, you know, the entire population segment, you know, across the social income level. So those are what they actually be able to reach. And then there are, in fact, a lot of other things that they actually mentioned there, that if the federal government continues with subsidies on some other things, they might be forced to be able to go back to the Ways and Means overdraft again. Remember the Ways and Means, which was actually the last resort that the Buhari administration used, and that plunged us into a massive debt threshold that we had. Yeah, this government has tried to be able to normalize that, to ensure that they're not going to the central bank to be able to, you know, have an overdraft. You get my point now on the Ways and Means. I think that is one of the things. So the key thing there is the economy at this point in time needed to be able to grow 5 times the way it is growing. Don't forget, the growth is about just 3%. And they were saying that the economy will need to actually be able to grow at least on a monthly basis at about 10 to 12%, double-digit growth, for us to be able to achieve the target of the government, you know, for the 2030. So they said that's one, and that if the government fails to be able to be innovative enough to be able to think about to be able to generate other revenue, they'll be forced to go back to the Ways and Means again, which will actually be able to affect a whole lot of things on the economy. I'm sure there are a lot of interesting things we actually revealed there yesterday. It was a 2-hour session. So the lead economist there, called Alex Sinat of World Bank, is the lead economist for World Bank in Nigeria, was the one to actually be able to give some of these target lines that the government needed to be able to do to achieve that target. And then, yes, they are, just like I said, they acknowledge the current reform, they acknowledge the current success, the success of the current reform, but there are more needed to be done to accelerate it to be able to achieve that growth pattern. The Disco report yesterday, I think, was actually the Minister of Power, Adelabu, who mentioned, don't forget that, so plans are underway to be able to revamp overall the underperforming discos, especially, I think it was reported about the IBEDC, who is about, which is expected to be taken over by a liquidating company because of their inability to be able to make up their debts to banks. So a lot of banks are already threatening them to be able to take over IBEDC. And if that is the case, the government is trying to be able to see how they can be able to wade in. There was a report that they are owing banks close to about what's it called? Having technical and commercial collections in the last 2024 alone was only to about 550 billion that they actually be able to go to the banks, and they have not been able to sort out. So the other 2 discos in the north, Kaduna and Kaduna discos, as well as Ibadan, are having that particular challenge. And the government is actually planning to be able to planning a collaboration with a Japanese company to take them over. So there have been some issues around I get technical and commercial losses in terms of operational expenses. They've not been able to meet up that, and that is actually be able to affect their operations.
But I have to give it to the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. I think that if there's one sector, if there's one one minister that I think has been working.
So you think
not
so?
not to say the other people are.
Of course,
I think
of course,
it's
of course.
really been. It's Nigeria's
Power.
power problem is enormous.
Okay.
So I think that he has really been trying his best
To improve it.
Yes.
Whoa.
I do think so. You
Maybe
don't
I'm
think so?
sure I really don't really think so.
Oh, really?
I know I'm not saying he's not trying his best. I can
think he
agree
has
with
been
you
trying his
because
best.
I'm sure the jury is out there on him. In terms of what so far he has actually done. Because ever since the banding system, electricity generation, yes, he has actually been able to mention things around that. That yes, we've been able to generate 6,000 megawatts, which is actually the best on record, at least in the last 10 years. That we've been able to do. But in terms of distribution, there's still a challenge. Distributing and making it available to people. Yeah, I'm talking about your experience, could be able to say that, but I'm sure it's just like you are just 1 out of 10 who will tell you.
Yes,
electricity
my
has been bad in my
scorecard is
area.
probably the electricity.
You understand my point?
The
I
electricity
understand
in my
that.
area is pretty okay. Maybe
now.
that's why I'm.
And that's what you are saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So if you're able to just do a minor survey of those 10 people, maybe you just be 1 out of 10 that will tell you they've recorded that improvement.
Really?
You understand that?
All right, that's fine. Let's move to our next paper today. Let's look at the Punch newspaper this morning, still on the entire World Bank situation. So World Bank, federal government, World Bank at odds over funding strategy. And bank fears government may resort to CBN emergency funds, false budget parameters, minister counters. Why Tinubu will defeat PDP again in 2027? This is from Wike Saraki head 7-man PDP reconciliation panel. Again on page 27 says oil drilling to resume in the north. This is from the NNPCL. Now UK unveils plans to slash annual immigration by 100,000. Bielsa set to immortalize Clark amid tributes from Jonathan and Dewey. Lagos APC aspirant protests today over local government primaries. Push to crash drug prices gains FEC approval. These are some of the stories making
headlines there. So I think it's just like I said, the World Bank story of yesterday dominates most of actually the papers this morning. If you're able to look at them across board, and then just like Punch reported, a little bit of a hot because they were saying the budget assumptions, total oil production that the government has actually said. That the government has actually maintained will be 2.1 million barrels per day. Don't forget, we have not been able to achieve that target. It has actually, oil production has over just 1.6 million. The budget assumption of saying oil price per, the oil price per barrel is also $75 per barrel, is also at risk of not being achieved. And some other of those things there. Yeah, the minister came out to say, yes, we are sustaining the momentum, and we're putting everything in place to ensure that this is very well achieved and we'll be able to get to our promised land. You understand now, from the minister. The other important thing that I think was mentioned there, and I think I would love to be able to mention that as well, was one of the things that was actually mentioned by them. And so Alexinas mentioned this, that their budget was quite ambitious, even with the positive revenues that we tend to be able to have. But the recent economic dynamics is affecting the ability of the nation to be able to produce that. And as a result, we needed to be able to think out of the box to get that, to achieve our growth target. The other thing I think you read there in that report was Wike's media pally yesterday.
It says Tinubu will defeat PDP again
because
in 2027.
you know the fiery encounter the man.
What's his reason?
Because PDP feel like PDP is about to be imploded. I'm sure it's also on Vanguard this morning that with the way they are going, the insincerity of the party members and the party leaders, really the BOT. I was really surprised because never be able to push anything on the National Working Committee, but on the Board of Trustees of the party led by Adolfo Zwabara, and that people were lampooning him for working under the APC government, and that the chairman of the BOT was in Abia State and was campaigning for Alex Otia. Nobody could say anything. Now, because he was working, or because the entire Delta political PDP structure decided to be able to defect to APC, and then people will actually be able to cry wolf. So he made he be able to raise some vital points yesterday. But the important thing he mentioned there was that Fubara has come to beg him, and he came with 2 governors, APC governors anyway. So unfortunately, 2 APC governors came with him to come and beg. He never mentioned the name. but then led by Chief Segun Oshoba, who is like one of the leaders, one of the political leaders in APC, who brought Fubara. And then he mentioned that he told him that you don't have the capacity to be able to bring about peace. So, a lot of things are actually going on there. These two warring factions are sheathing their swords, and then maybe we're gradually trying to be able to see the end, to the lingering river crisis that have actually been able to be faced us in a very long while. So, of course, most of the political leaders, elder statesmen in River State are actually claim that the governor did that in the interest of peace, and they need to be able to bring about lasting peace. Because, of course, we needed that in that particular, in River State and entire Nigeria as a whole.
Right. Let's talk about this story on page 13. Lagos APC aspirants protest today over local government primaries. The
primary election of Saturday is actually...
What's the protest about?
Of course, it is the outcome of the election. Don't forget. A lot of people, the Baba Sokwe incidents we had yesterday, I think you remember that. Across the...
Who is this Baba Sokwe?
No, they call them the GACs, not the GACs now.
What are
the Governing Advisory Council.
Okay.
What could I call them? They are, in formal, they said they are the apex decision-making body.
Okay, that's fine.
You understand? Now, that's what they call them. You should have heard about them when the Lagos State House of Assembly crisis, hit the head. Right. You hear they said, the GAC faction. So the GAC is, like I said...
Let's not talk about the GAC. Let's talk about...
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So I'm talking about doing the election. So the election, the primary election, don't forget, it's just APC primary election. Right. So most of the candidates that emerged were as a result of the Babas, the favored candidates, of the powers that be. You understand? And that is what most of the losers, we are able to call it that way, those that lost start in the election, claimed that there was no level playing field. And then the election were already skewed in favor of some candidates. You understand now? So more or less like a predetermined election result before the election took place. So the protest is going to happen today. The APC too has actually set up a committee, a particular committee, to be able to take in most of the complaints and the grievances that the aspirants, are actually complaining about. But as I said, across the 52 wards, across the local government, as well as the ward level, the 52 local governments in Lagos State, there was one issue or the other that trailed the primary election that took place on Saturday. And in fact, there were issues about, people actually be able to go physical, with themselves. One of the things that was actually reported here was that, so of course, so the appeal committee was actually set up, led by former Commissioner for Justice, Lawal Pedro, because of protests. We see online, just go online on X, on Twitter, on Facebook as well. You will see complaints by both the supporters. I mean, I'm talking about both the aspirants themselves, the candidates, and their supporters, coming out that the way they have actually been shortchanged that happened there. So across these local government councils, there were a lot of issues that tend to be able to dominate it. So local government, for example, in fact, as I was talking to you now, Lagos Mainland and Yaba, I failed to produce any candidate because the whole place was riddled with bullets. People were just shooting here and there. Yes. Over Lagos Mainland and Yaba, no candidates so far because of, by the time the result was to be announced, some talks came in and it disrupted the whole thing. You understand? So it's really be able to get into, some candidates have emerged, but those two, we have 55 already. But even those 55, there are a lot of issues that are actually trading them. So the other two now is, just like I said, Yaba, LCDA, and then Lagos Mainland.
Okay, let's talk about NNPCL. Oil drilling to resume in the north.
Bayo Ojulari, the NNPC Group Managing Director, made that another important breakthrough, exactly, in discussions, especially in the northwest, as a part of the northwest. That's what he said. They would be able to start drilling again by the third quarter of this year. There have been some force majeure they've had because of insecurity issues, but that it will likely be able to restart again. I mean, like, what's it called? Prospecting has actually been completed. So the drilling and pumping out of the fuel will actually be able to start again. And that's actually good because remember the president, what's the task given to Bayo? Bayo is the new GMDC, Bayo Ojulari is his name. Bayo Ojulari Bashiru is to increase production to 3 million barrels. I think we meant by the end of this year. Is one of the reference points the president gave to him. And I'm sure he's trying to be able to put everything in place to ensure that we achieve that particular target. Even though, remember what I said earlier, we've just been hovering and struggling with about 1.6 million barrels, which is quite not good enough, and it's going to be able to affect our ability to be able to meet our revenue target, right? The revenue target, the revenue profile, the revenue target, as well as the other objectives of the government that we wanted to be able to achieve. I think another thing he mentioned here, thank you very much, is that so remember the agendas, like I said, I think the project were actually suspended in Bauchi and in Gombe states, which is where they want to start again now because of Boko Haram's resurgence. And in fact, maybe it was in the news today, because what I was hearing this morning was the Boko Haram overrunning another military base in Mate again yesterday. And then soldiers, like about 12 soldiers were killed, and they overrun them. So the kind of, fire powers these people actually be able to have. So, but I think Bauchi and Gombe are relatively peaceful. And then, so the suspended operation that was suspended during President Buhari's time, operation will resume again. So in an attempt to be able to ramp up the production capabilities. So I'm sure they have two important oil projects that are there in what's it called, in the north, Kolmani area, I think that's what they call it. So the Kolmani area was where the drilling project is located between Bauchi and Gombe. And that can at least allow us to also be able to move towards achieving our target.
Very quickly, let's see what we have on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The big story on the front page of the Vanguard today says, defections, PDP's collapse imminent. Ganduje, Wike have this to say. They said, our party will rise again in 2027. This is from Wabara. Now, there's a conference, all experts to brainstorm on government performance at midterm. Poor UTME results says we are all responsible. And that's from NAPTAN. On the top left hand side of the Vanguard, it says, how monarchs, vigilante members aid kidnapping. That would be interesting. That's an expose to actually read up on. Then there's another story that says High Court dismisses suit challenging Eyewoma as Ologbesere of Warri Kingdom. Then the World Bank, federal government disagree on budget 2025 assumptions. We already talked on that. Then federal government opens 300 billion naira sukuk 7 as investors ask for more.
How do you pronounce it like that? It's quite nice.
Then there's another one says soldiers killed as Boko Haram attacks military base in
Borno. Okay.
That's
Mate. How many people were even killed? I think those was right there.
A suspected headsman killed
17
in fresh attacks on Benue community. Okay, let's talk about the federal government opening 300 billion sukuk 7 as investors.
Oh, I think we want to talk about the non-interest bond again was actually released by was actually announced again for investors by I like to be able to invest in most of all this anyway. So the government announced that these will actually be another round to be able to attract foreign investors, both domestic and foreign investors. Is that clear? In an attempt to be able to meet up their the revenue obligation, the spending obligation, the expenditure obligation of the government. So the report there was actually saying to us that the government is yes. So was about 300 billion, and the sukuk was actually part of the annual borrowing plan of the government. Normally, every year the government will be able to do that, and will likely be able to consider about 2% of the federal government domestic debt instrument and about 77% of the federal government bond. So the target of that, and that's exactly what the ministry said. I want to be able to quote him as well. The managing director of Buhari Capital said something that the proceeds here will be paid by contractors of road and bridge projects to be identified by the Federal Ministry of Government and blah, blah, blah. So the instrument, according to them, backed by the government, is a non-evental of about 19%. So the target of this, as I said, is just government wants to be able to use to finance road projects. Exactly. The proceeds of the 200 billion. So the two federal government road project was what the government want to use this money, the 200 billion, to be paid for. And the rental, like tolling that the government will do there, that's how the returns will go. So unlike the other bonds where you get interest, here, the returns we are going to get here is just to be able to share in the profits that the government will get, from those projects. So the sukuk bond is, like I said, non-interest bond facility. We are not getting interest, but what you are sharing with the government is just the profit. And then the capital firm, the listed firm that will actually be able to help the government to be able to do that is the Buhari Investment. And they said the returns that the investors will get the profit sharing there will be on a rental fee of about 19.755%, which is equivalent to like the reward of 20% that you are going to get on such an investment. But I think the other thing I wanted to be able to mention there was the JAM result as well. I think so. JAM, for the first time, at least the uproar that be able to surround the last result that JAM released on Friday. So yesterday, about 18,000 students through a pool together, signed, and then decided to be able to initiate a legal proceeding against JAM. Because of some of the the itches and the glitches that actually happened during the last exam. A lot of them, in fact, were even calling for maybe JAM should be scrapped. And then we've seen a lawyer who has actually come out to be able to help them to be able to file the case. Right. Now, JAM 2 came out to be able to release a very long worded statement yesterday to say that, yes, the avalanche of complaints that they have received has been unprecedented in their history. The one they received this year, the 2025 JAM. Yes. And as a result, they need to across board. And as a result, they've actually been able to call for review. The review that usually take like about a month, 90 days before they try to be able to bring it back now to ensure that the reviews will be done before the end of May. And then it will be in three tranches. What happened to the registration process, the examination itself, and the release of the result. This group of students who have actually put together gave JAM 7 days to either conduct another exam, or they'll likely be able to face litigation issues. JAM is trying to defend themselves, and I'm sure these are the group of private school owners, private school owners who are actually coming. Maybe we are all responsible to ensure that performance-wise, I'm sure you're able to see the result. It is really, really disheartening for us to be able to have such a result. And I think the final part there was okay, maybe on sport. Nigeria
that's fine. We should actually talk about
the soldiers killing. I thought that. I mean, it was a very... So they said it happened on 3 a.m. yesterday morning. So I think the news filtered down around later yesterday evening that the Mate killing. So it's a very serious... So it's a military base, don't forget. Military base where the military are. So there was like very big explosives that was actually thrown there. And then some reports were saying 17 soldiers were killed and about 5 of them were actually taken as hostage. But there was a report that these people come around. And then it brings to fore again the discussion around the security summit. Remember when one of the senators stood up to say the firepower of these people is superior, and then the Minister of Defense says, no, we cannot just come out and say non-state actors cannot have firepower that will be able to withstand those of the Nigerian military or the state armed forces. The back and forth have been there between the legislature and the executive, and say, okay, well, maybe there will be a security summit. Some felt like that would be another pipeline to be able to divert or siphon fund or embezzle fund to do that. That why should you be able to have a security summit and exposing to the world your strategies to be able to do? Is that not what it amounts to? And then the federal government disagreed with the summit in the first place. And I'm sure yesterday we read it here that they'll make a U-turn. That there'll be like a 2-day summit to discuss strategies again, the strategies that we can be able to use to be able to deal with these people. But Boko Haram are coming again, remember. And it appears that they are getting more sophisticated in terms of the weapons that they use. And they're getting more strategic in the way they're attacking forward military bases, they're attacking military, they're attacking their barracks, they're attacking military post checkpoints. And they're getting more emboldened to do that. Because this, as was put up yesterday, was actually first spoken by Daily Trust. And Daily Trust, because they are in the north, they are able to have a first-hand account. And in fact, one of the reporters was reading that on Twitter this morning, giving us a rundown of what happened. And how it is that if you have seen the situation of what happens there, it's not in Dikwa, yes. So you mentioned Dikwa and Marte, because the Marte local government in Borno, which was at the time has been overrun by the Boko Haram during Jonathan's time before Nigerian military took it over from them. But it appears that they've gone to rearm themselves and they are coming again to want to be able to take over the place. Yeah, the report this morning shows that yes, the military have condoned off the place. They are now there, but these people just be able to have the ways just come out and then launch an attack unannounced.
More importantly, there just needs to be a lot of tightening of security.
Yeah, so that's what, and then you keep saying these people in the north.
There needs to be tightening.
So that's why you're saying, can this never end? Because
lives are being lost
on a daily basis. I'm saying these are just militaries. If you're able to look at the story there, I'm sure you'll be marveled as to these soldiers. Because this is soldiers, because people are not so sure. Is it 17 soldiers? Is it 12 soldiers that were killed? But even those ones, these are the people that are defending us. For them to have, you know, the effrontery, the temerity to go and attack a military base and started killing soldiers, you could see how the daredevil trait that such a person must have had to wanted to be able to do that.
Well, I really don't have much to say again on this
I understand. It's really disheartening.
It's disheartening. I'm just hope that you know it's already almost like rhetoric. It's like every time we're having this conversation and there seems to be nothing happening.
No end in sight. You understand? I mean, when I saw this, it really dampened my mood again. That it's when we feel like we should be dealing with economic issues, security is also wasting his head. The government felt like, have we been able to get a hold of this? These people are coming back again, and then maybe they just like say, we just go back and they go and re-strategize, go and re-plan, and let's see how we are going to be able to hit them hard again. That's exactly the way it is now. Borno has actually been quite peaceful in a long while, but now the last 2 months now we've been hearing cases of pockets of attack here and there, that these people are just attacking these places. They are coming again, checking that place and doing that.
Well, rest in peace to the soldiers who lost their lives again in all of these killings. But that's where we have to draw the curtain on the newspaper review this morning. Let's see what we have on the cartoon of the day this morning on the Business Day newspaper. We always have interesting cartoons. If we can take a look at what we have today on the cartoon. Okay, it's a little bit of, so we have the cartoon. But then we see the broom. It says, what party state is a goal?
My state is a goal.
And then you can see the map of Nigeria.
With one party spread across the geopolitical zones.
Brooms all across. And the brooms is a symbol of the APC. And then you can see the president of Nigeria, of course, with
taking a hold. You can see him with a rope.
Yes, so he's holding. So there's a bondage, there's a rope around Nigeria, which obviously it's like a bondage, and then you can see the broom spread across the map of Nigeria, and then you can see who is holding the broom. Map.
The map and the broom, okay.
Holding the broom and holding, and it says, haha, my one party state
is a goal.
Well,
so he has been strategic about, thank Liz, and I think it is because the APC, PDP on last week, the BOT, I think you read that, predicted that APC will implode very soon. That's our prediction. The Wabara, and before, I'm sure the one you read today, I'm sure it's the one way of firing back that Kanduje, which is the APC chairman. So now said, oh, PDP is about to be able to implode. And it appears that his own prediction is holding more weight. Why? We've seen the Delta case, right? Was it not last week? All the senators from Kebbi, they were all PDP. In fact, Kanduje took them to the president to say, these are the new senators that have defected to our party now. All the senators in Kebbi, the three of them. You get my point now?
It's very interesting, but we have to just wrap up here
so
with the
maybe it is like that. Is it going there? The question has been like, can Nigeria really be a one-party state? Because that's what I'm trying to think in my head. Okay, maybe may not be one-party state literally, but that by the time you're able to like norm the opposition that they cannot do anything, then you tend to be able to have a very free, easy ride in 2027, and that's what it is really looking like.
Right, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Newspaper review. Thank you, and that's where we bring it to wraps this morning. Up next is the big story. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
This conference is catered to addressing the housing deficit and helping us to seize some of the opportunities that we have present.
Business Day Media Limited held its annual property investment conference, Pre-Invest, on the 14th of March. The conference brought together stakeholders, investors, policymakers, and innovators to unlock Nigeria's $900 billion real estate market and address the opportunities, challenges, growth, and future of the industry. This year's edition is themed The Future of Real Estate, harnessing demographics, urbanization, and opportunities amid economic shift. Business Day's publisher, Frank Ibohun, delivered a notable welcome address, emphasizing that the real estate sector is no longer just evolving, but redefining the future of Nigeria's non-oil economy.
The real estate sector is not defined by just the data, the GDP data that we talk about or that we hear about. The real estate sector is more crucial, more vital than any data can suggest. Following a recent gross domestic product rebasing by the National Bureau of Statistics, your sector was adjudged to have surpassed the energy sector, the oil and gas sector, to become the third contributor to economic development in Nigeria.
According to PwC 2024 report, the real estate is now one of Africa's most dynamic sectors, with a market value projected to exceed $900 billion by 2030.
The influx of unqualified practitioners is a major challenge confronting the real estate industry within Nigeria, and especially in Lagos State. And this has negatively impacted the sector's credibility and growth. With Lagos State being a reflection of Nigeria's urbanization and also one of the fastest growing urban areas in the world economically, the increasing demand for residential, commercial, and industrial properties has given rise to fraudulent practices such as multiple allocations of the same property to different tenants, inflated rent prices, and substandard construction projects. These issues not only discourage investors, but also pose a serious threat to public trust and investor confidence as key elements of property investment in the sector. In Lagos State, we are committed to transforming the real estate industry. As we continue to regulate and professionalize the sector, I urge all stakeholders, investors, developers, and real estate professionals to advocate for ethical practices and also register with the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority to enhance regulation and credibility, as well as foster an environment where real estate investments can thrive safely and sustainably.
The conference captured various solid panel sessions with reputable industry giants.
Government does not have lands anymore. And this has brought creative things. What is our JVs that we do? We partner with families who have family lands but don't have the means to develop it. And we share the apartments. When I say land is not available, I'm talking about vacant land. Lands are occupied. And we have a major regeneration agenda for Lagos State.
We also got a chance to speak to some of the speakers, and they shared their submissions.
One of the key issues with housing is just the cost. The cost of construction is high. The cost of financing is high. The interest rates from our financial institutions are high, and all that adds to the problem of affordability. So in order to resolve that problem, there needs to be policies in place to, number one, address the issue of high cost of building materials. So import substitution, local production and development of the value chain materials will bring down the cost.
Fortunately, in Nigeria, capturing data is an ordeal, but that is the only thing that is going to actually allow us to understand where we're going as a nation, as an industry, as a market, and capturing that data, whether you're talking about the private sector and individually as real estate companies capturing data in a CRM, or the government capturing data from a survey perspective. Data is the only trend that we need to know about to be able to to capture the opportunity that's currently wide open in the market?
99.9% of houses and properties that I see being built disobey the fundamental laws of building. There isn't the infrastructure or the manpower to regulate all these buildings. If I am going to build and invest my money in building, I will pay for the consultants. I will let them do their work and I will listen to them. But then maybe because I am educated and myself, I am a consultant, I cannot tell you the number of people who will not pay for consultancy. And I sit and I listen and I watch them. Most builders now, if you say to them, did you put in a dam-proof course? They don't even know what it means. Meanwhile, we have rising damp. We are a city that is, barely a foot above sea level. So the fault isn't the government. There's enough legislation with the government, and anybody who wants to do the right thing can do the right thing without waiting for government to come and enforce the right thing.
Construction is not an easy job. You have to be competent when you are doing it. If you don't have the competence, employ the competent hand, the project manager, the cost adjuster, the cost people, the country surveyors, the engineers. They must be properly in place. When they are in place, then you get your housing off ground quickly.
The conference was able to capture some of the major challenges that the real estate sector currently faces, with solutions suggested by the speakers present. Attendees also had opportunities to get answers to their questions. Since inception, the Business Day Property Investment Conference, Pre-Invest, has become a crucial tool for insightful deliberations on the future of Nigerian real estate industry, and the organizers remain unrelenting in making sure that the conference continues to address the needs of the masses.
We live in a world of artificial intelligence. Things are a bit much easier now for us. It might be tough for us to go back to already established talents to track them. But with the new ones here, that's why you see our fintech and all of them flourishing. We just need to tap into that technology of AI, and it will help out. It's there already, you get, and it will help keep data. Data is the new currency. And once you have data, why some of the scouts abroad are a bit wary of touching some of our talents is because there's no data. You understand? So they're just going with your word. Yes, it's a talent, we see that, but we would like to see his data because it helps us also, and I'm talking as a European or someone from the abroad, as we like to say. It helps them to say, at this age to this age, these were some of the traits we saw. So that gives us an idea that if we put this through, we know what the outcome will look like. Because now we live in a world where you can determine outcomes. So for all of that to happen, I think we need to start taking our data very seriously. I don't know if people are willing to invest in that. That is another question again to ask. If we want to build talent, you have to be able to track this talent no matter where they are. Somebody must be able to be anywhere in Afghanistan, and you can get on an app and track whatever talent you want to track, and you can see the progress over time. So I think therein lies the dilemma we are in. Question is, are they ready to make that investment into that technology and see that they can mine data for athletes and talents, and you have this data, you can take them anywhere in the world. You have something to say, this is what their progression looks like. It's not much of a media thing per se. It's much of the administrators of the sports. You do not feel, oh, because we're a sport, media must come. You must understand that at the very core of sports is media. If your event is not being covered, you're just having fun. You are no different from somebody who's playing street football somewhere with his friends. You're just having fun. If you understand that as an administrator, Now remember, the whole idea of the media is to document your events and your programs and all of the things you're doing. So there's an archive. Remember, you're not going to be there all your life. You're going to leave that seat. Someone else is going to step in. There's something they can work with. They can look at this and say, okay, this was what was done. This is the next level we need to take it into. So the issue is not media as in media. The issue is the owners of the sports. What's their drive? Where is their vision? Where are they headed? What they want to do? And that determines how they need to showcase it. So it's theirs. Media should be at every core of every sport, not necessarily a football thing. Football is football, and it would always be football. There's some great football tournament that you don't even hear of because it's not covered. So every sport must take its media arm very seriously. Social media is such a powerful platform now that you as a sport needs to look at what makes us unique, what makes us stand out, and start to tell your own story. Tell your own story in your own unique way. You don't need to have some crazy camera, expensive. No, just have a good phone. You understand? Record it creatively. Edit. You can edit on your phone now. There are apps that can help you edit easily. Edit it and start. You don't need to buy social media space. You don't need to buy Instagram. You're not paying for it. You don't need to buy TikTok. You're not paying for it. And right there, start telling your story. We've seen people who have gone viral and have had input, not even from different people, even from people you have no idea of. Just because they heard your story, loved your story, and they say, you know what, I want to partner with you on this one. Once you start doing that, you like it or not, mainstream media will actually, okay, we heard something is going on. They want to be part of it also. So it's all down to the sports itself. I'm quite excited. I accepted to come. I think Business Day is onto something. I don't know what it is, but in my spirit, I feel it. That I feel a sense of optimism. Because there's a dark, and everybody was saying, oh, every time Wall is reporting the, negativity, because there's a lot of it. There's just too much of it. Oh, can't we just talk on one positivity? It's nice, but there's 200 negativities. So even if you want to push out it's just hard. I'm very positive. I always look at the cup half full. In fact, I don't look at the cup half full. I look at the fact that there's at least water in the cup to start with. You understand? Half full or not. So I feel very strongly that with what has been kickstarted here is the first time Business Day is, having this event. I'm sure some of the speakers who couldn't make it will see the outcome of this and regret that they didn't make it. And they will be the ones calling, when is the next one? This is early year. You can do it twice a year. You can even do it 3 times a year. Business Day, be ready for that. And people will want to be a part of this. And maybe by the time we tend to put our heads together, remember, 2 good heads, not 2 heads. 2 good heads. Always better than 1. By the time we put it together, we know the problem of our sports. We know what the problems are. We just need the testicular fortitude. For those who know, they know. The testicular fortitude to face it head on and deal with it decisively. It's simple. It's really, really simple. As long as we make up our mind that, nobody should be benefiting from the decadence and the despair of the ecosystem called sports. As long as we agree on that and everybody takes it seriously, everybody will enjoy at the end of the day because we're going to build a thriving ecosystem. And somebody can say in Harvard, let's take a look at Nigeria's sporting system. I mean, this was a system that was generating, $200, but today is a $200 billion, system. That's a joy to us. That brings pride to us. And everybody, even our unborn children, will benefit from it.
All right, so what he said is that the government should actually answer, from sports business. There's sports and then there's the business of sports. So the government should actually be actively involved in sports. But the business of sports, he thinks, that the government, should actually, hands off, from it. And being in government for like 6 years now, I also agree that, and that's why I said that the government has no business doing business. But, the responsibility of the government is to ensure that it creates an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And, I believe so strongly that, when they do this, we'll definitely, reap better, rewards, from, the engagement, of sports, especially, with, the private, entities. Because, I mean, with them, there's more sustainability. With them, there's more, organization. With them, there's more, consistency in the running and the affairs of things. For a government, I mean, soldier goes, soldier comes. I mean, there's a new government, 4 years today. It could be another government entirely the next 4 years. This one that, left, who was maybe, very interested in sports. Now, actually, the one coming might not, be interested in sports. So all the investment, every investment that has been made actually goes, south, just because of this new person doesn't have interest or feels that, oh, you know what, why are you talking about, sports when we have, agriculture, when we have agribusiness, when we have, commerce and all, not knowing that all these things, there is a place, for each, of these sectors,
Okay,
and
sir.
none is subservient over the other. Yeah, so I mean, intentionality. That's, what we really need to do. Intentionality. If we want, grassroots sports to actually, grow, what do we need to do? We need to actually, take, sports, and then also take the infrastructure of sports to the people. I mean, so that they have a platform, that they can actually use to express, this their talents. And how can there be, expression of, talent if, you don't have, like a warehouse that actually, I mean, holds, these people, together, that actually help them to groom, so that they can actually soar. So I feel that, I mean, we, should actually increase in the projects, the PPP project, the private, public partnership, projects, in our various, community. It's not what the government can do alone. So we have to bring in, private investors, private, entrepreneurs who will be able to see, the need, in that system. And, the government will also ensure them the according, security, that will come, with it, that when I put my money in this, this is the security I have. It's not that I put my money, in so-so's, administration, and by the time it comes to Tamedo's administration, my investment, they tell me that it's gone and it's nothing to, so I mean, those are the things, that I think that we should do. We should actually, see it as, a continuum, a business that should actually, continue irrespective of, which, sheriff is in town.
So I think that everywhere in the world, is really the role of governments to provide an enabling environment for businesses in all sectors to thrive. But because this event is about sports and the business of it, I think that to a large extent, the Lagos State government has been at the forefront, in facilitating the development of sports in Lagos. I mean, you could think of the accelerator program for, sportsmen in grassroots communities, and then some of the initiatives even discussed at the conference. But there's always room for improvement, and I can tell for a fact that under the leadership of the Honorable Commissioner, working under the governor, Governor Abajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, I can tell that there's still a lot more, to be done. And I know that there are a number of projects and initiatives in the pipeline to ensure that some of the issues raised here today about the challenges that still exist in how we move sports from just being a recreational activity to now, a business, entity that could, entail a multi-billion investment and all of that are already in the pipeline. And I just think that as we have more of these conversations and we do follow-up strategy sessions on how to implement these things so that they don't just end up as panel discussions or as keynote addresses, I think that it could only get better from here. Okay, so like I mentioned, so there's what is called the Lagos State, Sport Accelerator Program for young people in grassroots communities. And the initiative is domiciled in the Lagos State Sports Commission. And the whole idea is just to see how, to enable sportsmen and, sportswomen, especially those in their prime in secondary school and those who are just approaching tertiary institutions, on how to really understand the business side of sports. And it also provides, an opportunity for key players in the sports business value chain to also come together, ideate and implement the future of sports. So what I mean is that for organizations, who are facilitating programs like the Lagos City Marathon. I mean, they were here at the conference and they shared their views. There's room for so many more of them to come in and complement what government is doing. To be honest with you, government will not be able to solve all the problems, but it's up to government, to provide the enabling environment. So, and I know that also beyond that, there's what is called, the Lagos State Sports Academy, for young people, also in grassroots communities, so that, as we look at those who have approached stardom, those who have made it now, we have others who are in the pipeline too, who are also getting trained and, accessing resources and other initiatives that they need to benefit from to also emerge.
The starting point is that it's good to protect your IP. It's good to protect your image rights. When you protect your image rights, then it puts you in a better pedestal. You then find out that you're able to even make more money for yourself. This is an area where most sportsmen have not updated their minds to. And given the advent of data privacy in Nigeria today, it's one area that individual sportsmen should begin to look at and invest in a lot. So IP rights, IP protection, it's key, and it's a new way to go going forward. Well, the truth of the matter is that you can't really prevent contract breaches. What you can do is that you can actually have a robust contract that adequately protects your interests. And so my one advice is really for sportsmen and women to always carry, as you know that you need an agent, always carry a lawyer along and let that lawyer, review your contracts and make sure that those contracts adequately protect you. The things that you would not see as a layman, it's most likely that your lawyer will see those things and then let you know that X and Y clause should not be inserted in your contracts. But you find that most time because you don't want to pay a lawyer, you go it yourself. And it's when the chips are down, you then come running to a lawyer for protection. So government has no business in sports. The government's business is in creating infrastructure. So build stadia, create infrastructure, create opportunities, but don't be the ones managing or running sports. So all the clubs that the governments are running today, I think it's not proper, it's not nice. But it should allow pure professionals, pure businessmen, to come into the business space to make money from sports. Government should just create an enabling environment where all of these businessmen can thrive.
Sports is driven by media, storytelling. So what we are doing differently is that we are creating a distinct platform to sell the Nigerian sports, the Nigerian athletes to the world. So we are creating this platform to make sure that the small player in Ajegule, the small player in Jos can get the same visibility that any European player will get on the existing social media platform. And that's what Govia is here to achieve.
Okay.
On Govia, you can score your dream goal. So Govia means go through. So we have built Govia to help people score their dream goals.
All right.
I'm excited about this event because I'm able to meet key stakeholders that would help me achieve this dream. It's a burning desire in my heart, and it's one of the reasons why Govia came up as a sponsor for this. And we're happy that we did this with Business Day. We thank Business Day for this platform, and we look forward to more opportunities to talk more about the sports ecosystem and business opportunities.
All right.
Thank you
so much, sir.
Coming here today, just meeting like minds for me, that's my biggest takeaway personally. But also being able to hear the issues we're all facing, like us being sports professionals, we all face the same issues. So being able to tackle it in one space, I think was really helpful. And also stumbling blocks for me, I've been facing in my day to day, just being able to meet people who could help solve it. That's my biggest takeaway from today's conference.
Okay.
Oh yeah, devs, but it's more than just holding it. I feel it's the follow-up that matters. It's one thing to host this type of events, but it's another thing to be proactive about the solutions we talked about. But yeah, sure, hosting this type of events is going to help. Just meeting like minds under one roof. Yeah, sure.
This is the Craftsmanship Chronicles series on Go Local, and on this episode, our focus is on wood, trees in our hood. Kemi Michael here, your Yoruba named Akwa Ibom girl, welcoming you to Go Local. Now, Go Local is a podcast where we delve deeply and explore our nation's local uniqueness. Go local, buy local, and together we stay global. As we get into it, do also grab a cup of your favorite drink and a snack you would love to munch on. Oh, and make sure to make it a Nigerian snack and get ready for an amazing ride. Since humans first realized they could make use of the materials they found in the vicinity, wood has been used and altered by us. People eventually learned about the special qualities of wood as they utilized it to satisfy a wide range of human requirements in peace and conflict, farming, and industry. Throughout history, trees and their wood have been essential to human existence. Since ancient times, wood has been one of our most vital building elements, used for construction as well as for production of tools, weapons, and furniture. Wood has historically played a key role in a lot of areas, and we Nigerians are part of that history. For this episode, I went to the Itamaga sawmill in the Ikorodu area of Lagos State, where I was able to speak with the General Secretary of the sawmill.
My name is Alhaji Kabiru Adegboyega Ibrahim, and this is Sogidowo sawmill Itamaga. So I'm the secretary to the association, General Secretary to the association, Sogidowo Plant Marketers Association of Nigeria.
Here in Nigeria and around the world, we have several uses of wood, such as agricultural purposes, for making musical instruments, for carving religious figurines, to create household furniture, for casket production, for fortification, as well as for source of energy supply, for example, our firewood and general logs for fireplaces. The wood production in Nigeria has specific process, and I will leave the explaining for the experts.
The woods normally come in 2x6. That is for roofing. So when they buy to the, like the ones you are looking there now, and it's 2x6. So when they bring it here, so if you want to saw it, you saw into 2x4, 2x3, 2x2. Those are the roofing planks. So we saw into to those sizes if you need it for roofing. So we take it from the shed down to the machine side. So we saw it there. If it is roofing, so it's all 2x4, 2x3, 2x2. So for facing board, that one is 1x12, 1x12x12. So now like the one that they are putting down there, so that is 1x12x12 for facing board. So after you roof to facing board, so you cover breeze or whatever. So that's what they use that one for. So to seal the roof with the ceiling. So that's what they use it for.
Just like other industries, the wood industry sure has its challenges.
The challenges we usually face is the problem of this marine police or guard or whatever. You know, they are extorting us too much. You know Nigeria, that's Nigeria system, corruption. After we will have saw wood, process it, take the license, but they usually collect approval for wood, any wood cut. After that, if you pass through the water, if this marine police or whatever see you, they will still collect money as if you never collect any paper. So that's the Nigerian problem. So we face many challenges, yeah? At the same time, after they are coming from the river, the canoe bash, those the trucks that are coming into the sawmill, those are the policemen on the road trying to collect something, collect money. Those are the challenges we have.
Vegetation of Nigeria can be broadly classified into two types, that is, forest and savanna. Now, according to Statista in 2021, Nigeria exported forest products amounting to nearly 109.7 million US dollars. Most of these products were roundwood and sawnwood, amounting to roughly 52.4 million and 8.1 million US dollars, respectively. Other main exported forest products included paper and paperboard.
The wood always come from Bayelsa State, Ondo State, Edo State, and from Oyo as well. But the one coming from Oyo, that's 1 by 12 by 12, and at times 2 by 12. But 2 by 6 wood for roofing normally come from Bayelsa, Edo State, Ondo State, and at the same time from Ogun State, Ogun Water side. The customer you have, if it is an old customer, you must have a relationship. He can call you on phone and place order. So you call transport for him. When you've concluded with him for the quotation of the wood, so if you help him process it, you call transporter to transport it. So they will take it down to him. Or some do come inside to the market by themselves. So they will negotiate price, buy the wood, call a motor to pack it. Because the transporters, they have their own association as well.
According to the United Nations, Nigeria has the highest deforestation rate in the world, with an estimated 3.7% of its forest lost every year.
That's what I'm saying, our problem here. And these forestry people that are supposed to be handled at Ministry of Agriculture. Wherever they cut timber, supposed to plant it back immediately. They don't do that. In a question of say 5 to 10 years now, there will be the issue of a wood scarcity. Those places that I'm talking the other time, Bayelsa, Edo, whatever. If you want to get wood now, it's very, very far to the upland, to the river itself, to the swamp itself, too far. That's why the wood is very hot now.
This is a call to action to the Department of Forestry, Federal Ministry of Environment. We in Nigeria are losing our trees and we need a solution to this loss. When one tree is cut down, I believe 10 more should be planted in its stead. Wood in Nigeria plays a very vital role, and leaving our forests to chance of the trees growing on their own accord is very risky. We need to be more intentional about our forests, and yes, also the trees in our hood. If you've ever wondered where you can get wood from, well, look no further. The sawmill at Itamaga area of Ikorodu in Lagos is right there for you. Now, if you happen to be a lover of DIYs, or you're a professional wood carver, an artist that uses wood for their craft, or one who uses wood in their everyday life, for example, writers, well, always remember, wood is good, but we need more trees in our hood. Plant a tree today, save our environment.
I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of Business Day. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with Business Day.
Business Day is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, Business Day has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At Business Day, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this is worth commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, Business Day fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities. With millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria, Business Day is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, Business Day is your guide.
Good morning and welcome to the Bdtv Breakfast Show. I am Bethel Ogunjobi.
My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And this is the social listening segment on the Bdtv Breakfast Show.
We're talking about the Fly Nigeria Act. Can you give us a background into what this is about?
We are here today on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, to gather opinion about a pressing issue.
I will look at the cost of petrol. We get away from Nigeria with the suffer.
The income is not really increasing, but the prices of items are increased. Nothing like savings again. No. You only pray for that money to reach you that month.
There's a lot of high pressure, a lot of stress. There's a lot of high targets to be met.
I was quite strict. In my mind, I said, nothing from my hand, my picking will spoil.
To allow all banks and all the players in the space
15% inflation target achievable in 2025.
The command and vision philosophy of both the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and indeed all the service chiefs.
Attention business leaders. Want to make informed decisions? Join the ranks of the best with Premium Business Day. Access in-depth analysis and expert opinions to stay ahead. Subscribe now at premium.businessday.ng and unlock premium content. Plus, you get 50% off your first subscription. Don't miss out. Make smarter choices and seize new opportunities. Sign up now and elevate your business game. Visit premium.businessday.ng today.
First of all, I'm inspired by the fact that young people, bright, intelligent young people are starting to take an active interest in agriculture. They can see the money. They can see the passion. I can see the passion. So for me, that was a major takeaway. Then, of course, we know what to do in agriculture in Nigeria. We've had hundreds of seminars and symposia about it. What we need to be doing now is to start identify our destinations and start having seminars to decide how we will achieve our preset denomination, rather than trying to redraw the rule book all the time. Oh, several. We're pioneering the Noila, which is a dual-purpose chicken breed
that can change the face of protein malnutrition in Africa. And already we have over 1.2 million rural households, and we have nearly 10,000 mother units that are buying the day-old chicks, raising them for 5 weeks, and distributing all around the country. It's been very, very successful. We're very proud of it. Also doing innovations like empowering farmers for broiler feed production, for sellers of chicken and beef and fish and eggs. So we're very, very proud of what we've been able to achieve in the protein space, in spite of all the challenges, we're still forging ahead. Okay, for instance, our outgrower farmers, we give them subsidized day-old chick price because we're the number one producers of day-old chicks in Nigeria. We're able to give them a certain subsidized price. We give them feed. We give them veterinary pharmaceuticals also at subsidized prices. And most importantly, we take the products back from them into our chicken processing plants in Uyo, Kaduna, Benin, and Ibadan. That way, we're able to produce a closed circuit, end to end, for the farmers. And we've, by the grace of God, been able to bring thousands of farmers back into active business. Well, there's a lot government can do, and I know they're doing a lot. I'm aware that there's quite a lot of effort, but like I said, we need to move away from from creating ideas to implementing the ideas we already have. And for instance, energy. Why is a farm in Nigeria paying an energy bill? In many countries, energy for farming is subsidized. The road networks, we were fortunate, the Oyo State governor, Engineer Sheyi Makinde, visited one of our facilities and saw how horrible the road was. And we're glad to say that that road has been commissioned now. But how many people have that benefit? So infrastructure, government can help us with, and also the right environment, the economic environment. Government has no business doing agriculture. They have every business facilitating the production of food to get to the average Nigerian at the lowest price. And I wish them all the luck, all the best in the efforts that they're currently on.
The need for us to immediately future-proof our agri systems and make the country more food secure. We need more mechanization. We need an ecosystem of value chain actors coming together to build this. We need farmers to become more clusterized for interventions to work in a scale. Oh, very fantastic. So we work across 10 states in Nigeria, providing women farmers access to mechanization through cooperatives. We service flour mills of Nigeria, Coast rice. These are some of the biggest growers in the country. We provide fit-for-purpose mechanization from land preparation to harvesting services, and we have seen an increase in yield. Now, we deploy these solutions with an intent for the farmers to succeed, thereby becoming partners to the farmers for the future. We are at the verge of launching our e-commerce platform. It's called the Correct Farmer Platform for farmers to access these products from the comfort of their homes across board, and the growing population of farmers that we have needs to have these tools at their fingertips. The government needs to make their policy more consistent. That's all.
Well, the topic is the future of agriculture in Nigeria, and I just spoke on a panel about future-proofing Nigeria's food security. There's a lot that we have said, but I think the major thing is we need ecosystem players to collaborate so that we can scale, because it's easier to solve the problem at scale than acting fragmented. And of course, beyond that, we need government to be more of a facilitator to bring ecosystem players together, ensure that incentives are well aligned for all players to play. And those ecosystem players will include service providers like input suppliers, from mechanization to fertilizer to seed, then to financiers, financial institutions where I sit. For example, we have funds, and then we provide loans to trade finance loans to commodity exporters, and we finance a number of companies in Nigeria. So you bring financiers together also that way, and then you bring companies that want to scale agriculture, want to invest in the sector. You bring them together and you align incentives for everybody. But we need to start doing things at scale. We need to collaborate, because to really solve the problem, we need to have like an integrated systems approach so that we can truly handle the problem from farm to table. I mean, it's a broad question. That like I said, agribusiness is a complex system. So I can't prescribe 1 or 2, 3 actionable steps. The first is different players need to understand what their role is. And government needs to use their power in the most effective way. That's the first. So what's the best way for them to use their power? I think that is to bring players to the table, align incentives for all of them, and then ensure that it's implemented. So you bring farmers, you bring commercial investors, you bring financiers, you bring input suppliers, and then you find the right incentives, the right partners, development partners, and you ensure that that is implemented, right? That's one, but it's a complex problem. So there'll probably be a list of 100 things to be done. But the fact is, we can't solve the problem the way we are right now because we're fragmented. Most of the things we have is wasting. So we need a systems approach. In that systems approach, government's role is to facilitate, bring every important stakeholder to the table. And the third is we then need to, all of those players need to take their part as financiers and investors, as service providers, as agriculture and agribusiness companies, and solve their own part of the problem.
For us, starting with especially when we talk about cluster, especially for agriculture, we are ensuring that our rice farmers are in clusters. So right now, we have in Lagos a cluster of farms of about 1,000 hectares that is going to go into rice cultivation. We have 500 in Igua, which is in Ogun State. So we're having a cluster of farmers so that we can leverage on technology, particularly when in talk with the drone producers for agro-input production, so that we can reduce the cost of production and invariably the cost of output. Yes, there's tractor on the go, and particularly again for the rice farmers, we're actually making provisions for technology to serve them and input to serve them in their clusters that we have created. They're already live, so you just need to be in those groups. You have to be a part of the cooperative, part of the farming community in those groups where they are.
It reinforces the fact that stakeholders need to meet, to discuss, and forge a way forward, and particularly planning towards the future, which this conference is all about. The future of agriculture is propitious, but we need to plan, we need to talk about it, and most importantly, hammering on getting on action. Yeah. Technology comes in different forms and in shape. For us at Integrated Area Precision, we are providing farmers with precision agriculture solutions, such as drone technology, services for spraying, planting of seed, application of fertilizers, something like end-to-end, also helping them to detect pests and diseases early as possible. So our farmers, first of all, must have an open mindset to adopt, right? Accept and adopt this technology. And we can put from different stakeholders, we can put together models that can allow our farmers to be able to access this technology at scale. I mentioned during my speech, we need to move to cluster farming, move our smallholder farmers from a fragmented system of production to a clustered system of production that allows them have access, easy access, right, to these technologies. And not only technology, interventions from the government, policies can be focused on them, and they can be able to have a voice, right, that is aggregated, that is and strong. So, and with that, I believe that we can be able to have access to technology. And of course, we cannot put away the fact that funding is important, yes, right? So we can come together to create a model that allows these farmers not only acquire this technology, but the goal is for them to have access, either through services or through other models. Yeah. Well, I would say that the government is an enabler. The government enables by creating the environment, the enabling environment. And what do I mean by an enabling environment? The policies, right? The policies that make technology to strive, the policies that allows our farmers to work more efficiently. And working more efficiently, talking about cluster farming, we're going to be talking about land clearing and land development, and that is the responsibility of the government. And because the government is the owner of the land, right? So the government needs to do that and not moving away from land development into supporting farmers with, with the technology that can allow them to grow productively at scale and, more importantly, sustainably. So that's where government can come in. Okay. What's the difference? Well, this is 2025. One, but from our assessment, I can see the crop of stakeholders and professionals brought, in the room, and I believe that this is a hot pot, right, where these issues are being discussed, and I want to hope that from here we can be able to get into actions that result into real impact on real people, right? So beyond just talking, I can see the crop of people that is really significant and commendable. But what's going to be more important, and what I hope for through this conference, will be translating this discussion into action, right? We can see government, we can see private sector individuals, we can see development organizations who are interested in the agricultural sector. Yeah, we can be able to make things work.
Like I said in my presentation, all the stakeholders in the agri ecosystem in Nigeria, especially the government and the private sector and investors, need to come together to a round table to discuss the possible investment available for the mechanization ecosystem, especially for making tractors available to smallholder farmers, affordable tractors. If we have tractors that farmers can easily pay for, all right, it will reduce the dependency on on crude equipment. Okay, so the call to action is for every player in the system to sit down on a round table and discuss how to make this possible. If it is investment, bring in your investment. If it is policy, how can government policy improve and impact positively on the availability of tractors? Can we, by policy, increase the number of tractors available to farmers across Nigeria? Can we, by policy, reduce the costs of tractors currently? So I think that is with the various stakeholders and the powers that be to make sure that tractors are everywhere for smallholder farmers. Yeah, and I think that's the way to go. With what we currently have, even imported tractors are not enough. Right, there's a huge deficit of almost about 200,000 tractors in Nigeria. We can make that up. We can make up that number by fabricating locally, by supporting local fabricators. I don't think we have up to 5 firms or companies fabricating currently in Nigeria. We can increase the number of local fabricators. We can make funds available to them to be able to include. We can develop markets for them. We can help them with demand. We can help them with all sort of their capacity to be able to adequately fabricate and manufacture and release these tractors to the farming population to enable everybody have at least enough tractors to farm their land. We provide technology services connecting farmers to owners of tractors, number one. We also work in policy, working with the government to see how, through the impact of policy, we can reduce drastically the effect of the economy on fabricators and manufacturers and importers of tractors. Right. Number three, we collaborate. We work with every interested private sector player, public sector player, and farmer groups to understand the various challenges and how to play our role in reducing the problems. Yeah, it's definitely a limitation because, again, like I said at the presentation, if farmlands are scattered everywhere, it's almost impossible for any owner of tractor to make their tractors available. All right. So how do we start clustering farmers? How do we start bringing them together? How do we make it possible for a particular, for instance, a particular 200 hectares or 1,000 hectares? Yeah. How do we make it possible for farmers to actually cultivate together? Right. How do we build a farming community? Okay, so that when a tractor hits that community, the owner is able to till about 1,000 hectares or even 500 hectares or 2,000 hectares, right, without moving out of that community. So clustering is the way to go. Developing farming communities is the way to go. My major takeaway from this event is that if, again, all the stakeholders can collaborate and they mean it, it's possible to make Nigeria so food secure.
So I think number one, it's a myth to say that we don't have farmers in Lagos. In the last 6 months, 9 months to 1 year, we in the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Systems, we've been on farm tours, moving around various farms in the 3 agricultural zones of Lagos in Badagry, Ikorodu, and Ekpe areas. Maybe we don't have as many vegetable or crop farmers as you have in other parts of the country, because our farmers are more focused on poultry, livestock, piggery, and aquaculture. So they are also farmers. And then you have the artisanal fishermen as well. But we do have farmers indeed in Lagos. In the Ojo axis, for instance, Badagry, you have a lot of vegetable farmers. In the Ekpe axis, Ikorodu axis, you have a lot of aquaculture and poultry farmers, and in other areas you have pig farmers as well. So number one, it is a myth that we do not have farmers. Being here today at the Business Day Summit, moving Nigeria from food scarcity to sufficiency and what have you, it just consolidates everything we have been doing as a Lagos state government under the leadership of Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, putting together a market-led transformation. I was very happy that in there, one of the panelists had mentioned that systems and building the right kind of systems for all stakeholders within the value chain is actually what is most critical, rather than giving silo-led interventions, which is what is the norm. And having a market-led transformation system is actually the fulcrum of all we are doing in the state government in Lagos State. And essentially, it is harmonizing all the efforts of value chain actors. So you're talking about logistics providers, you're talking about storage facilities being made available, you're talking about input providers, you're talking about market actors themselves, the market men and women, you're talking about aggregators, you're talking about financiers, you're talking about everybody and anyone you can think of in the value chain that would ensure that your food moves from the farm to your table. That is the essence of having a market-led system, and that is what we are doing in Lagos State. Building the largest food logistics hub, which will cater to the aggregation that is required to be able to consolidate all holdings around food and ensure that at least we have a minimum of 180 days of availability of food if there's a disruption in the system. Yes, would that guarantee?
That guarantee drop in prices?
Yes, that's the whole idea, because when you have enough food available, it means you take out fluctuations as regards availability. Also, you have preservation in place, because you can't store food without having the right preservation technologies in place. At the same time, the price point at which you buy, it means you no longer are subject to demand and supply fluctuations or even climatic conditions, because you have the foods available year round, and for that reason you can actually stabilize prices. These are areas we have seen are critical to the overall ecosystem in agriculture, and this is where we are putting our monies behind, to ensure that for the entire Nigerian space. And when we talk about agricultural food availability, Lagos is at the forefront. We understand our place as the largest market in sub-Saharan Africa, and we know that we must also collaborate with other states that have the capacity and capability to be able to provide the quantum of food that is required. So this is not just a silo game. It is for all of us, private sector, public, non-governmental, civil society, for all of us to partner, come together, and ensure that we have food available for everyone. So I hope I have broken the myth for you, but I mean, it's left for you to come and see what we are doing in the space, but we indeed do have farmers. I mean, come out during World Food Day celebration and you'll see that Lagos does indeed have farmers. No, when you say eggs are expensive.
What does he think that
In Lagos, we just rounded up the Onje Eco Food Farmers Subsidy Program, where we actually subsidize input feed for poultry farmers and aquaculture farmers. We gave a 25% subsidy. We worked with the likes of Olam and with the likes of Animal Care in ensuring that the farmers got the feed also directly from the manufacturers themselves. And that was able to help bring down the cost of eggs and the cost of chicken and the cost of even fish. Right now, as I speak to you at one of our facilities, which is the middle level hub at Mushi Idiro, that's a fresh food hub, egg is sold at the lowest price in the state. And when I'm talking about eggs, I'm talking about the largest sized eggs, and a crate is going for 5,300, whereas in other parts of the state we have eggs going for about 6,000 to 6,500 naira. The same thing is happening for many other products, and these are things that we are working on as a state government to say when we have specific locations, when we have facilities that can be controlled in terms of quality, in terms of accessibility by the farmers themselves, where you negate the middlemen, then consumers will be able to access food at lower prices, and government will also be able to intervene properly and ensure that in terms of subsidies, in terms of interventions, it is going straight from government to the consumer, taking out the middleman in the whole space. My major takeaways from this event would be that, number one, we have actors who are really practicing within the space. And when I say actors, you're talking about from farmers themselves to those who are in the finance sector. And these are people who truly are catering to the people within the space, so they know what they're talking about. Number two, I'm very happy again, like I mentioned earlier, it is a systemic solution that must be adopted. And a systemic solution means we cannot work in silos. We must cater to the issues surrounding logistics. We must cater to the issues surrounding storage. We must cater to the issues surrounding credit and finance and insurance and financial accessibility. We must cater to production itself. We must cater to climatic issues regarding ESG and what have you. We must cater to water resources even being made available. So when you put all of this together in one full basket and solutions are tailored to each and every one of them, but in congruence with one another, then we'll start to have the right kind of solutions to the entire problem. The bottom line at the end of the day is food availability. What is food availability? It is when food is made available at the right price, in the right quantity, at the right time, to the right consumers. And this is where markets also come in. Markets help to harmonize all of these efforts together. And for you and I, that comes up to us in the form of pricing and in the form of the freshness and wholeness of the food. So this is what we are doing in Lagos State Government, and I'm very happy that what Business Day is doing here today, it just harmonizes for us all of our efforts in the last couple of years.
As Jovren Group, we own 48,000 metric ton cocoa processing plants in Nigeria, which make us the largest indigenous cocoa processing plants in Nigeria and second largest indigenous cocoa processing plants in Africa. So as a group, we encourage value addition, and that is why we are into value addition, adding value to our commodity. So as a group in John Vane Group, we have some of our subsidiaries that are adding value to our commodities, such as cocoa processing. So in John Vane Industries, what we do is we process cocoa bean into cocoa butter, cocoa cake, cocoa powder, which are also served as raw material for some organization. And as a processing company, we also process cashew into some other derivative under the authority of our other subsidiary, Noble Eagle. We also process sesame. We process soybean into soybean oil. We process paddy rice into polished rice. And with this, what we are doing is to encourage value addition to our commodity and also to discourage food importation. We are encouraging local food production within the agricultural sector and also to encourage the smallholder farmers into farming and also to encourage the youth to go back to farm, because by adding value to all this commodity, we are also encouraging people to come and rather than exporting the raw commodity abroad. In John Vane Group today, we are partnering with over 15,000 farmers, and by 2030, we have a target of partnering with 150,000 farmers, and which means that in long term, we are encouraging more smallholder farmers. And also within our schemes, we have a scheme in John Vane Group. We have the in-grass schemes, and we have the hard-grass scheme. We are doing this to encourage farmers, especially from the small orders to the mid-level and to the large farmers group. And in John Vane Groups today, we are encouraging cooperative settings. We are encouraging farmer groups in such a way that our farmers, especially both in our hard grass farming scheme and in-grass farming scheme, we have different farmers group and we have different cooperative. And we are not stopping at that. As I speak to you, as of last week, we still have a team on the field encouraging cooperative formation so that we can have more farmer group within our group to encourage smallholder farming system within our business. Yeah, in Nigeria today, farmers are suffering up to 40% post-harvest loss. We realize this as a business, as John Vane Group. And that is why we have built and we are still building small warehousing units in every community where we have our farmer group in order to avert the challenges of poor road, like you mentioned. Before they bring in their commodity from the farm to the town or from the farm to the market, there are lots of losses. So in order to avert this, in each of our community where our cooperative and farmer group are established, we have many warehouses for them. And also through our logistic arm, as a business, we also have our logistic arm named Even Hauling, where we have over 100 trucks. So we have access to easy logistics. So through this, we move all this in bits from their local warehousing to the factory and also to the mega warehouses in the city. We also, through our transportation system that we currently established, we also encourage farmers and make transportation easier for them for moving their products from their farm to the local warehouse hub and also to our mega warehouses in the city and also to the factory for processing. Yeah, so our business, we are into both local processing and also into export of the finished products. So like I mentioned earlier about the losses that the farmers are encountering and faces on the farm, you also mentioned poor road infrastructure. So we need the government to intervene into all these challenges. This John Vane has provided solutions to logistics, but how many can the private sector do? So we want the government to come on board and assist the smallholder farmers. Yes, there are schemes that we as a business have established to help these farmers, but we can only do this to the farmers under our group. I mentioned earlier that we are looking at 150,000 farmers by 2030. But in Nigeria today, we cannot reach all the farmers. We cannot provide solution to all the problems that all the farmers in Nigeria are facing. So we need the government to come on board and assist the private sector in order to help the farmers. Government might not be able to reach these farmers directly, but we have a chain where we can reach these farmers directly. We already established that platform where we can reach these farmers directly. And in another way of where the government can come in, they can assist with either no interest or very low interest loan, where which we can, or this can come through us to the farmers. because we have a well-established microfinancing system whereby these farmers can get this loan without interest. Even as a business, as I talked to you, we give our farmers no interest loan. So if a business, a private sector could do this, then government can also do this. So we need the support of the government in this line, and also to improve infrastructure, good roads, good good roads, to solve logistics problem, and this will also encourage the youth to remain at the farm, and it will also reduce urban migration. The farmers will have peace of staying over in the farm. Yeah, so I mentioned that by 2030, we are looking at partnering with 150,000 farmers. And I also mentioned that we need government intervention in building roads, providing irrigation, providing potable water for farmers, making farmers' livelihood better. By the time we have support for 150,000 farmers in the food sector today, you will see the impact in the life of people, not now, not even in the farmers alone, because food will be accessible for the community where these farmers are. Even in the nearer community to where the farmers are settled, there will be enough food supply. The farmers and the community livelihood will be better. And as John Vent as a business, because these are our farmer group, the commodities that we trade in, there will be sufficient raw materials for the business to process. And through this, it's a chain from the farm to the business, from the business to the government, because when the business makes money, then the government will also take some taxes. So it's a chain. Yeah, so what we have done and what we are still doing is to ensure that we partner with both private investors and public investors. Recently, we partnered with BRI, and last year, we also partnered with IFC, and we also have some personal investors that are willing to partner with us because of the good work that the business is doing. Yeah, so in Nigeria today, agribusiness have access to maybe about 5% lending from commercial bank. And because our major commodity in Joven Group is cocoa processing is highly capital intensive. So because of this, for our business sustainability, the strategy we have adopted, like I mentioned to you earlier, is to encourage private investors and also public investors. Like I said, we partner with BII, and last year, we also got some funding from IFC and from some commercial bank. And because of the highly intensive, how the capital is, we are hoping for more investors to come into the business, for our business to grow bigger and better.
Welcome to the Business Day Insurance Conference. Our theme today focuses on resilience and growth in uncertainty, charting the path for Nigeria's insurance industry.
Business Day Media hosted the Insurance Conference 2025 on the 16th of April, bringing together leading voices from across Nigeria's insurance landscape. The conference had a strategic gathering of CEOs, regulators, policymakers, and innovators committed to reimagine the future of insurance in Nigeria. The event themed resilience and growth in uncertainty, charting the path for Nigeria's insurance industry, kicked off with a welcome address by the editor of Business Day Media Limited, Temitayo Fabole, who highlighted the importance of the insurance industry as a pillar of national stability.
Penetration of insurance in Nigeria is just 1%, of the GDP per capita. But now imagine that if it grows, if it increased by just 1%, Nigeria's economy would unlock about 1.5 billion in additional economic value. So for every 1% that's unlocked in insurance, it's an additional 1.5 billion, and you can imagine if that compounds. For an economy that also is turning the corner, obviously, with new businesses rethinking investments in Nigeria, taking more risk, it means you also need to take insurance. So obviously the opportunities are there, not just the typical ones, life, your car insurance, but also a change of mindset. And of course, with the numbers that we have in Nigeria, you unlock a lot of opportunity.
Also followed was a goodwill message delivered by the Deputy Commissioner for Insurance, Finance and Administration, Mr. Ekerete Ola Gamikon. Representing the CEO of the National Insurance Commission, Mr. Olusegun Ayo Omosheyin.
So the insurance industry is the biggest industry in Nigeria. Yes, I heard when the editor said insurance is not as big as it is elsewhere in the world. That's a misconception. The insurance industry is the biggest. Why do I say that? By the time we begin to hear from the keynote address and other conversations, we'll discover it, we'll find out, we'll appreciate it. So how it works is that we secure all of the businesses that are being done in Nigeria. So when you see the value of Dangote Refinery, it's the insurance company that holds it together. When you see the Boa Group, any group at all that you mention, it is the insurance industry that holds it together. Because what we call the sum insured, which you don't understand, is the value of what we secure. So why won't we be the biggest? So please, let's put our hands together for ourselves.
The keynote speaker, Dr. Chizoba Perpetua Egolu, rector of the College of Insurance and Financial Management, during her address, emphasized on the need to build resilience in the face of economic uncertainty. She also talked about the versatility, strategies, challenges, opportunities, solutions, growth, and the role of stakeholders in the insurance industry.
As insurance practitioners, we have first-hand information on the impact of economic uncertainty on our clients. And we have also seen the importance of insurance in ensuring that we restore those businesses as it is. Also, if we could close our eyes in a flash and think about what will happen if there is no insurance business in Nigeria. First is that we won't be here. There will be no job for all of us, true of us. So our importance cannot be overemphasized. So I may bold to say that insurance is a recession-resistant industry. In fact, we can say that one of the synonyms of insurance could be resilience. So we are a business that have come to stay.
The conference featured 2 engaging panel sessions with reputable industry experts.
Here is an umbrella representing the insurance in Nigeria. You can see this umbrella here has power. It can cover the risk of an entire nation. But how many risk is under this umbrella? It is less than 1%. The contribution to the GDP, less than 1%. So we can have 100% under this risk, but the potential currently is 1%. It shows that we need to bring in all innovative technique to bring people under this umbrella. So amidst that, this umbrella here is shaking. Why is it shaking? Because of high inflation level in the country. There is so many things that is happening in the country, interest rate, volatility, and co. So those are the topical issues that we're going to be discussing today.
One is about the clients themselves, and one is about the insurance companies too. From the clients themselves, you have to pay insurance today for a purported unknown risk that could come up tomorrow. That point of, do we know whether your reward is going to be on earth or in heaven, is still one of those barriers, because people think that if I pay now, I don't know if I'm going to need it, and I might never need it. So there's still that mindset that, will it really help me? And when you put that beside young people today, they have this you only live once mindset, right? And you're saying, I only live once, and I'm going to put this money here. I don't know if I'm going to benefit from it, right? And when they start to think that way, and they look at, okay, what if I need it? What is the multiples I'll get? The multiples on insurance that they've put in place might not be adequate for the sort of realities that they are facing. So in the end, they will prioritize putting money on investments, putting money on even betting, yeah, because even though everybody knows that in betting you might not win, but in insurance you would always win at some point in time. But from them, they're just thinking about today. So for us, we have to rethink our approach to be able to manage those sort of barriers that they are facing. But okay, what other benefits can you get today from an insurance policy? We do have benefit policies, and we have risk, pecuniary situations that could or could not happen.
Vice Chairman of the No Takafu Insurance Limited, Mr. Aminu Tuku, also threw light on how non-conventional insurance models can support market expansion during his presentation. The conference provided a platform for knowledge exchange and forward-thinking conversation, which underscored the urgent need for collaboration and innovation to grow Nigeria's insurance industry. Some of the attendees and speakers shared their key takeaways from the event, offering perspective on how the sector can remain competitive and inclusive in a fast-changing world.
And from research today, I see that the industry is more open to collaboration. I see that people are at least we're thinking we want a better industry. Penetration is still low, even though we're impacting a lot, but we're still not doing enough when it comes to retail customers, SMEs. And I think there's an opportunity for us as insurers to work together, to learn from each other, and to perhaps find some ways to collaborate to solve some problems together. So I look forward to even the deliberation on innovation, just for others to know what's going on and what's possible. So this is, I think, a really great event. Thanks to Business Day.
The insurance sector rather in Nigeria is they are growing, right? But there's still one or two things that needs to be done for the company to, I'm sorry, not company, for the sector, for the sector to get to its destination, right, and be at par with its contemporaries in the global world, right? So, for example, now in terms of a digital platform, in terms of going digital, so globally, most insurance companies can perhaps sit at the comfort of your home and subscribe to a package, an insurance package, pay your premium and all, right? Not all insurance companies in Nigeria are into that. And I think that's what they could do. And one of my takeaways here is that, see, insurance, the time has come for you to open your eyes to innovation. And innovation is the next thing. So innovate, right? Be digital, go global.
The event concluded with a network session offering stakeholders an opportunity to forge partnerships and exchange ideas for the future of insurance in Nigeria. This is Indigwe Ifunaya reporting for Bdtv.
I think essential thing is for the regulations to kind of streamline processes. So when I mean streamline processes, right? So make it easier for digital platform or maybe startups to come into the system, perhaps through maybe a regulatory sandbox, right? So regulatory sandbox is a very safe environment where solutions are being tested in a controlled environment by regulators, right? Where issues are actually troubleshoot. Products, challenges that product could face are actually experienced within a controlled environment, and having a regulatory sandbox or implementing a regulatory sandbox for digital platform, I think it will go a long way to help the growth of digital platforms in the country, and also keep them better equipped, right, to scale on a larger basis, whenever they come out, to the general public. Before I go into that question, I need to give kudos to both the government and our National Assembly for passing the insurance bill, right, which we expect that before December 2025 it will be an act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, right? So how can the federal government really help the sector? By incentivizing the sector, right? By ensuring that you don't overtax them, right? And if you have new insurance companies coming in, by ensuring that the minimum capital for going into that sector is something that people can actually afford, right? And also perhaps it could imitate. I mean, the FG could imitate what the other countries are doing. For example, Kenya, you see MTBA, you see some of the insurance platform where tax reliefs are given to them for them to really float before they go into general space, right? So again, what else can the federal government do by liberalizing the economy as well? for making sure that the economy is well protected for investors to come in. Because any investor that is coming into any country and you don't have, well coordinated rules and regulation, or you don't have a process for your exit upon your investment, it becomes a problem, because a challenge for the investors to really come into the country. So the government can do a lot of things. They could even go into partnership through the regulators with these insurance companies to bring them to the table to say, you know what, we want you to succeed in this sector. Let's go into the partnership. Let's identify your problems. Let's find solutions to your problems, and let's take your industry to the next level. The insurance sector rather in Nigeria is they are growing, right? But there's still one or two things that needs to be done for the company to I'm sorry, not company, for the sector, for the sector to get to its destination, right, and be at par with its contemporaries in the global world, right. So, for example, now in terms of a digital platform, in terms of going digital, so globally, most insurance companies can perhaps sit at the comfort of your home and subscribe to a package, an insurance package, pay your premium and all, right. Not all insurance companies in Nigeria are into that. And I think that's what they could do. And one of my takeaways here is that, see, insurance, the time has come for you to open your eyes to innovation. And innovation is the next thing. So innovate, right? Be digital, go global.
Business Day, which is the leading business newspaper or finance newspaper in Nigeria today, has been playing a big role in terms of the insurance aspect. The insurance conference is something I've followed, done by Business Day. But this time around, this year, I said, look, we must be a part of it. It's something that we believe and we like. We like the impact. People trust activities or things done by Business Day. So yes, we do believe in that. We have to find the right balance. Innovation, you can't stop innovation. So what you're going to have is innovators are going to be ahead. Then they're going to have the regulators coming in to say, look, regulate what the innovators have done. And I think it's something that the regulators will want to encourage. NICOM, as a regulator in the insurance industry, wants to grow it. We keep on talking about this 1% penetration. I think NICOM will want to grow that 1% to 2%, 3%. And the only way they can do that is to encourage innovation. So there has to have that handshake, there has to have that partnership. In some areas, NICOM has created sandboxes to allow the operators put in some of their innovations or their tech into it to test it, so that doesn't restrict them from innovating. We recently launched a technology platform or digital solution. It's called Raha by No. What basically it is, what we keep on realizing is people don't like to contact the insurance companies because there's a belief that I only call my insurance company when there is a problem, when they have a claim to make. So what our digital solution is trying to do, which is Raha by No, is to provide people a lifestyle to tie in their insurances to their various lifestyles. So there's a reason to continue to talk with our digital solution. So we believe with that, you have more financial protection, financial planning through Raha by No. You're able to do knowing more about your motor vehicle insurance, things that come about in it. For instance, today there are various fines that are coming up by overspeeding on various roads. And these are safety issues. These are things that also concern insurance because we believe if you drive faster, you have a higher risk of having an accident. So through Raha by No, we should be able to encourage people to say, look, these are the new guidelines by the Lagos State or federal government of Nigeria. So you have more engagement. We believe our digital solution will have more lifestyle engagement with our clients and our participants. Oh, fantastic. Sometime last year, we received approval from NICOM to provide micro-takaful. Micro-takaful basically allows us to provide insurance to the lowest people. So as little as 500 Naira, you should be able to do that. Now, we understand with our takaful model, it's not just about profit making, but service orientation. So we believe that we've been able to grow as an organization. We believe that part of our services now is to ensure that the small man, little man on the streets of Nigeria, the little man who is working in the farms, who is trading, is able to have adequate cover. They're the ones that are seriously affected. When we have floods or fires in the market, they can't survive. So we believe with the micro-takaful, we should be able to penetrate these without compromising on our services, our professionalism, our ethics and values as well.
Yes, I think so, because apart from the audience that were here, it's a mix of practitioners, media men, and some other group of people.
This is the Business Day Television broadcast. You are watching Business Day Television.
The tech-heavy Nasdaq index rallied 4.4%, closing up more than 20% above its April 8 low, swinging from a bear to bull market. The Dow Jones also exited a technical correction yesterday, rallying 2.8%. S&P 500 also up 3.3%. The Magnificent Seven stocks were on track to add $821 billion in market cap in yesterday's risk-on rally, and it's all being attributed to a reset in US-China trade relationship, with the US temporarily rolling back tariffs on most Chinese imports to 30% while both countries negotiate some kind of trading agreement. This led to a rally in risk assets and selling in safer havens like gold and treasury bonds. Trump also told reporters that China tariffs wouldn't return to 145% even in the event that no deal is reached within the 90-day pause, though tariffs could still go substantially higher. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says discussions will continue in coming weeks to pursue a broader trade agreement. So far, so good. Hello and welcome to Global Business Insights, where we look closer at headlines moving markets to equip viewers with perspectives on the business environment. Market analysts are advising caution as uncertainty has not quite dispersed fully, and separating noise from signal is still key to navigating today's environment. My advice is to keep an eye on the macroeconomic data and corporate releases, especially the outlook. On the U.S. data that we are getting this week, April U.S. inflation rate, the NFIB Business Optimism Index, retail sales data, and the API's weekly report on U.S. crude inventories could all be providing more useful signal. Especially today's inflation read, perhaps the most important pointer on potential inflationary impact of tariffs, which will guide Federal Open Market Committee's next move. The FOMC have said they expect a transitory rise in inflation. CPI is expected to remain at a 2.4% rate in April on a year-over-year basis. Excluding food and energy, so-called core inflation is expected to run at a 2.8% annual rate, also unchanged from the prior month. Brent crude oil has also been extending gains at the start of the trading week, helped by temporary easing in geopolitical tensions and improving macroeconomic sentiment. Apple is reported to be considering price hikes for its upcoming iPhone lineup, but also wants to avoid linking any increases to U.S. tariffs on imports from China, where most of its devices are assembled. Apple shares closed up 6.3%, tracking gains in the wider market after Washington and Beijing agreed to temporarily slash the reciprocal tariffs. South African mobile network operator MTN Group reported a 33% jump in first quarter core profit due to strong service revenue growth and lower device cost of sales in its domestic market and a more stable economic environment for its operations. Group service revenue rose 19.8% in constant currency terms, helped by 40.4% growth in MTN Nigeria, 39.5% growth in MTN Ghana. MTN South Africa continued to face challenges, especially in the prepaid segment, with service revenue growing just 2.6%. Koidu Limited, Sierra Leone's largest diamond producer, has halted operations and laid off nearly its entire local workforce of more than 1,000 employees. This came after a protracted dispute over pay and working conditions. Workers at the mine went on strike in December 2024 but suspended their walkout to allow negotiations. They then walked out again in early March. Chilean state-run copper miner Codelco said on Monday, that's yesterday, that it had reached an agreement with BHP for the multinational firm to explore the Anilo mining property. Codelco, in a statement, said BHP will spend up to $40 million to explore the area, and that could lead to a deal with Codelco to mine if there is a favorable business case. And in Egypt, the Suez Canal Authority Chief Osama Rabi said the authority is considering offering discounts ranging from 12% to 15% on transit fees to revive ailing traffic in the strategic waterway after attacks by Yemen's Houthis on Red Sea shipping. Rabi told privately owned Seda Al-Balad television channel in a phone interview that the discounts could be applied within days after it received ratification from the president. And in Nigeria, the World Bank said yesterday that the economy recorded its fastest growth in about a decade in 2024, driven by a strong fourth quarter and an improved fiscal position, but warned that persistently high inflation remains a challenge. He added that bold reforms implemented by President Bola Tinubu, including ending costly petrol subsidies, slashing electricity allowances, and twice devaluing the naira currency, have added to upward pressure on prices. The World Bank's lead economist for Nigeria, Alex Siena, said during a presentation in the capital Abuja that the economy grew by 4.6% year-on-year in Q4 2024 and sees Nigeria's economy up 3.6% this year. He added that foreign exchange reforms have created a market-reflective, unified and stable exchange rate, allowing the central bank to rebuild official reserves now exceeding $37 billion. Later this week, we should get Nigeria's April inflation read. Guinea has cancelled a bauxite mining concession granted to Kebo Energy SA over failure to deliver on promised investments. The cancellation was announced late on Friday and was confirmed by a senior Guinea mining official. Today's deep dive is on ethics and the issues surrounding acceptance of an expensive Boeing aircraft gift from Qatar. Trump has called the move a very public and transparent transaction, while Democratic U.S. Congresswoman Kelly Morrison described the gift on X as corruption in plain sight, saying that to accept the gift, the plane would be blatantly illegal, a national security risk, and a clear conflict of interest, adding that the Constitution forbids it. It may not be wrong to show appreciation for help and support that the world's largest economy and influential superpower has given to many nations, but there are ethical rules that guide acceptance of expensive gifts. Even if we rule out a bribe for a favor and there is open disclosure, and if the plane can be refitted and rechecked for all the necessary security guardrails, there are still other issues. Ethical governance suggests that a gift or hospitality should not be accepted by a government official because of the recipient's position or because of anything they may do or not do as a leader. In this case, there is no contract or favor that is obvious in the context. Gifts can be open, harmless, unsolicited, and innocent, but still unethical and illegal, especially when you delve deeper into reasons for which it was offered, and of course the laws surrounding gifts in the particular jurisdiction. Indeed, a leader is free to accept a benefit or gift if no reasonable person would see it as giving rise to a conflict, or if it does not set a negative precedent or conflict with law. In this case, there could be a conflict with the Constitution, and it does look like a bad example for other leaders. You could say there is an appearance of corruption. In the US, the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution prohibits receiving gifts from foreign states without the consent of the US Congress. Some scholars have debated the applicability where it cannot be proven to lead to foreign influence and corruption and hurting ability to ensure officials maintain undivided loyalty to the US government. According to US Attorney General Pam Bondi, there is a way to make it legally permissible and less contentious. The plane would be gifted from Qatar's Ministry of Defense to the United States Department of Defense and later transferred to the Donald Trump Presidential Library before 2029. The Qatari-owned 747 is just over a decade old and one of the most luxurious private planes in the world. My view is that gifting to Ministry of Defense merely disguises the fact that this was intended as a gift for President Trump's use, and he should at least obtain congressional consent before accepting. Or much better, Trump could personally or the US government should pay fair value for it if indeed there is need of an aircraft. In the UK, wages slowed less than expected while the unemployment rate inched up to 4.5% in the 3 months to March after reporting 4.4% in the quarter to February. The market forecast was for a 4.5% reading in the reported period. The de minimis exemption for items valued at up to $800 and sent from China via postal services were in the past able to enter the US duty-free and with minimal inspections, not anymore. But the United States would cut the low-value de minimis tariff on China shipments to 54% from 120% earlier announced, with a flat fee of $100 to remain starting from May 14. Also, China has removed a ban on airlines taking delivery of Boeing planes after the US and China agreed a temporary cut in steep tariffs. Officials in Beijing have started to tell domestic carriers and government agencies this week that deliveries of aircraft made in the US can resume. The group chief executive of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Bayo Ojulari, hailed as a star leading the top team overhauling NNPCL, is now saying he's committed to finding oil in Nigeria's northern region. Reportedly, over $3 billion has already been spent on this adventure. The administration of the former President Muhammadu Buhari launched the crude oil drilling project on the border of Bauchi and Gombe states, and this was later suspended with little clarity why, and now we also do not have an explanation on why it is being revived. While it's not wrong for NNPCL to spread exploration budget to cover the country as evenly as possible, if that is the wish of the federal government, it will not be able to win in the very competitive upstream sector with that kind of hazy strategic focus. Millions of taxpayers' dollars also will be spent, with many contractors and industry, domestic and international players benefiting and no doubt delighted. All this as we hear there is an ongoing forensic audit. Many had thought the new NNPCL administration would be focused on getting NNPCL ready for its IPO. The noise now is that there could be other priorities, especially as the election season gets closer, a time when NNPCL can be useful for other purposes. Ojulari needs to give clearer signals on his vision and to convince Nigeria of the difference he brings to the very familiar narrative. Asia-Pacific markets traded mixed after Wall Street's massive rally on the back of a US-China trade deal. Investment banks are also raising their projections for China economic growth in 2025. UBS believes China's GDP growth in 2025 could climb to between 3.7% to 4%, up from a previous base case of 3.4%. Morgan Stanley has also made upside revisions to its near-term GDP China forecasts. Goldman Sachs cut its recession forecast for the US to 35% from 45%, the first major brokerage to do so after a temporary tariff truce with China. Well, that's it on this edition of Global Business Insights. Thanks for watching. This is Bode Oshosani. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to the Business Day exclusive. My name is Elizabeth Musa and today we are all about millionaire moves. I've got joining me today a young man who is passionate about helping young people, especially those in the African American community, create their own wealth journey. His name is Cedric Nash and he is called Your Millionaire Mentor. He's a serial entrepreneur and investor who educates, inspires and motivates wealth building in the African American community. He's also the founder of the Black Wealth Summit 501 organization and the author of the newly released books, Why Should White Guys Have All the Wealth? And also He's also the author of How You Can Become a Millionaire Starting from the Bottom and the Millionaire Money Moves Supplemental Investment Guide. He also is the founder and the owner and president and CEO of Oakland Consulting. Oakland provides a range of enterprise IT services that helps organizations realize their business and technology goals. He is also a firm believer and living example that anyone, regardless of age, race, income, or starting point, can build wealth if they have a burning desire, unshakable faith, grit, and a willingness to make the necessary sacrifices. Well, enough of the introduction. Let's get into the business of today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nash.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here with you today.
Awesome. Let me start by asking you why you started this journey of getting more people empowered to create wealth. Tell us about this journey.
Well, this journey started a long time ago, just coming out of college. I read a lot of books on personal finance, inspired by my mentors. I had 4 millionaire mentors who inspired me and shaped my mindset to want to build wealth. So when I came out of college, I really wanted to create a blueprint for building wealth starting with a paycheck. And so I was able to achieve that. And as a way of paying forward what my 4 millionaire mentors had poured into me, I wanted to spread the love to my community because I believe that, like I said, anybody can build wealth as long as you have that burning desire.
Right. And tell us about what this millionaire mindset is. I mean, there are many people who want to be millionaires. There are people who already are millionaires. They probably have a mindset that we don't know. And then what do aspiring millionaires also, what's this millionaire mindset that they need to know about?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people think that a millionaire mindset is really about, lavish living and lavish spending. And it's quite the opposite. The millionaire mindset is really around frugality. It's really around using your money like a tool to make more money as opposed to using it like a toy. And so it sounds very simple, but it's very difficult to implement. It's because we are influenced by our friends, we're influenced by social media, we're influenced by millionaires and billionaires who are spending millions of dollars on marketing to influence us to use our money to make them richer. And so it's harder and harder for people to keep their own money in their own pockets and building up their own group of assets that provide lifelong income and wealth for them and their family. So, like I said, it's a lot of people talk often about this millionaire mindset. I think they get it wrong. It's really about frugality. It's really around treating your money like a precious resource. And so often in our community, we treat it we have a saying, to fake it until we make it. We treat it more like to make us look more wealthy, and that never is a recipe for success.
And tell us about, looking at your own journey, what was the mindset shift rather that you had to make to become a millionaire?
What was interesting is that because my millionaire mentors had poured into me since I was in 11th grade, when I came out of college, I already had that mindset. So when I took my first job out of college as a software engineer, making $36,400 a year in the United States, which was a decent salary at that time for a 25-year-old, I lived on a very, very tight budget, a very strict budget. I made sure I was constantly saving. I bought my first piece of real estate right out of college. I went from my college apartment right into owning my own condominium. And so I was very frugal. I was saving my money. I was only spending on things that were necessary. So my mindset was already there. What's really interesting is that at that age, I never knew how it would turn out. I just believed that was the right process. And it worked because that mindset that cemented in me continued even when I started making significantly more money. And so as I made significantly more money, I always lived below my means. I always made sure that I invested in assets. And over time, those assets have grown and they continue to produce income. And that's really what we have to do. The sad reality is people are in certain financial situations that make it very difficult for them to live as frugal as they need to be. But that really is the answer.
Right. And, you talked about your journey and you rightly mentioned that you started out really early and you went on to even purchase your first real estate your property, real estate. So what's one mistake, one common mistake investors make at the early stage that you would like them to correct today?
Thank you. I love that you asked that question, because I have another book that I've written but I haven't released, and it's targeted to college grads. And it talks about the journey that I took, and it talks about some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the things that I would have done differently. And so one of those things are that when I first came out of college, I wanted to I got married shortly out of college. I bought a condominium, and I wanted to kind of, live this life. I bought a condominium. I bought a BMW, was buying fancy clothes, Hugo Boss suits, because I was trying to project this image. There was still work on my mindset that needed to be done. But for the most part, I was in good shape. The one thing I would have done differently, though, is I probably would have purchased a duplex. I would have purchased a property that had 2 or 3 units. And me and my young wife at the time with no kids could have lived in one unit and rented out the others, and got to the point where we were living rent free, so I could even save more money. So, and then I would have held on to that duplex, because, a duplex in the area where I was living today would be worth over $2 million. And I could have gotten it much cheaper. The other interesting thing about that duplex is, in the United States, the way financing works, the same financial requirements are needed for a single family that are needed for a duplex, threeplex, even a fourplex. So I still could have gotten in there with very little money as a down payment and had somebody else pay the mortgage and some. So that's the mindset that I'm talking about. It's about, how do I maximize the use of my money for my eventual long-term success? And that's the mindset that millionaires have. They don't look for short-term rewards. They look for long-term success.
Right, and let's talk about wealth building and what you think is important and what is not. Do you think age, do you think race, do you think education, do you think all of these things are important factors when it comes to wealth building?
The reality is it's not that important. It's really the mindset. And the reason why I say that is that the education can help in terms of your ability to earn more money. I mean, it does take money to make more money. So the education will help you on what I call the offense, on getting more income so that you can do better things with it. But there's been countless of people, in our history, as well as people even, our parents and grandparents who made modest amounts of money, but they saved a lot and they built significant wealth. And I always talk about my grandmother, who made only $200 a month, which is not much money in the United States, but she went on to owning her own home. She saved some money for retirement. She passed money on to her grandkids, of which I received some, and then I basically invested that money. At the same time, I own her house in New York, in the Bronx, and that house is worth over $700,000, and I have it rented out. So that's what generational wealth is really about. It's about efficiently transferring wealth from one generation to another. And so, and I say efficiently by minimizing tax liabilities, minimizing the amount of money you spend with lawyers trying to transfer over the assets. So I think it's not so much about how much you make. It's really more about the mindset, because if you have the right mindset, you can always find ways to make more money by taking on side hustles and eventually get your investments to generate the income that you want and desire.
Right, and I understand that you are mostly focused on, making sure that the African American community builds wealth. What do you think are some of the financial barriers that we are facing in the African American community?
The biggest barrier, and it sounds like I said, I know I sound like a broken record because I go back and forth to this mindset concept. It really is so important. But the biggest barrier to us as a community is that most African Americans, pretty much all of us, our understanding and our knowledge around wealth it's rooted in financial trauma, right? Starting all the way from slavery. And if you're in the United States, you go from slavery, you go to sharecropping, which my grandfather was a sharecropper. My father was a son of a sharecropper. You go from being promised 40 acres and a mule that never happens, gets taken back. You go to, there's a whole bunch of things, redlining, the Jim Crow laws, and even the stuff that we're dealing with today that's setting us back so far in the United States. So what happens is it's our response to that financial trauma that has shaped our mindset in the way that it is. and it's made us desperate. So then we invest in things that we expect are going to give us super fast returns, like cryptocurrency and things like that, right? We basically fall for all of these tricks that don't really get us there because our mindset says we're behind, we need to speed it up, so we've got to basically take chances. And the realities about wealth is that it's a slow process. It's about slow, consistent investing in quality assets that appreciate and generate over time. It also has us distrustful of our fellow brothers. So then we have a difficult time pulling our money together to invest together. All of these are mindset concepts. The other piece is that it has us overcompensating. So basically, I talk about fake it till we make it. We spend money to convince people that are not wealthy that we're wealthy, right? That's overcompensating, as opposed to using that capital to literally make us wealthy. All of these are mindset things that hold us back. And so in order to basically build wealth and to shift that mindset, it really takes the right village, right? It starts with having the right environment of people that are serious about building wealth and willing to put the work in. And that's why I created this Black Wealth Growth Challenge, where I mentor people for an entire year. And in that process, there's a huge mindset that's happened. They get coaching on investing. They learn from other millionaire investors, and they're inspired. And they're inspired to stay the course. And they're in a course with people like-minded. So that's really, really what's needed. And it's a slow process, and it takes time, but it's very, very doable.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. We are in Africa, so oftentimes people talk about poverty levels being high. It's hard for many people to even think of wealth creation when they have yet to put food on their tables. All of these things are things that people are not quite concerned about, building wealth when they are yet to, have a 3-square meal. What do you think is the way out of this? Do you think that it's still possible for people to build wealth with high levels of poverty?
Yes, there is. And like I said, it's been done, between generations. There's a book I read called, it's called Black Fortunes, and it talks about the six African Americans or Africans that escaped slavery to become millionaires. And they started way before the levels of poverty in Africa today. These are people who started as slaves, who started just out of slavery, who were able to pull some money together and invest in the same things: real estate, stocks and bonds, private equity, gold, the whole 9 yards, and become millionaires. So the whole point is like, no matter where you're starting from, it's possible. It just means that the journey is going to be slower and it's going to be harder. And that just means that you have to have that much more resolve. You got to find so many ways to make income. And what's interesting about Africa, which I love, I call it a new frontier, because there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that are happening. One of the things that I see, and I might be wrong on this, but one of the things I don't see that Africa is taking advantage of to the full extent, and that's the technology revolution that's happening.
Right.
African, businesses, there's so much technology that can be brought to those businesses that could significantly increase efficiencies and create opportunities for young people that have embraced these new technologies. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about cybersecurity. Talking about a lot of the technology centered around mobile technology and electric vehicles and the whole 9 yards. It's a huge opportunity. And I believe also that there's ways through research and hard work to identify ways to get capital for those businesses. And that's really, really the key. In fact, I really can't talk about it now, but I'm working on something that does such that to help bring capital to African-American people to kind of, spark their entrepreneurial dreams and goals.
Truly look forward to that. But, when I was reading through your bio, I did see that you spoke about spending what your money makes. And I was really curious to know what that means. How does one set up their finances so as to be able to spend what their money makes?
I love that. That's really, really the key. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people take their money and they spend their money, and they're not using it like a tool. When you use your money like a tool, that means that you invest in things that generate more income. An example of things that generate more income is you can invest in multifamily property.